All right, hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Chase Thomas Podcast. Taping this on a Sunday night. Fellow University of North Georgia alumni Matt Green is here. Matt Green, great weekend here in Knoxville, Tennessee. I mean, back-to-back great weekends for me. Got married in Knoxville, Tennessee a week ago. Beat Florida this week. Get a bye next week just to get everybody right as they prepare for LSU and Baton Rouge a week later. Let me tell you, being in the city right now, Matt Green, it's just the vibes are so strong, and being around everything and seeing Tennessee fans, nothing warmed my heart more than the Florida fans who were talking smack before the game, or talking smack like going in the building, and then you just hear Tennessee fans who have waited 6 years to just yell really obnoxiously at other 20-something Florida Gator fans who have only grown up with just the dominance. There are Florida Gator fans in college right now who have never really experienced this. They just have experienced almost their entire life was just Florida beating Tennessee year over year, where it was just expected. And that ended. And it was painful. It was crazy. It was a really, really bonkers game. I'm glad I was in the building and got to see everything up close and personal. But to see Tennessee fans just be able to pump their chest out a little bit and not just be completely devoid of reality was a special moment over the weekend. I'm jacked up for this podcast, Matt Green.
I'm sure, man. I'm sure you were ready to talk about Tennessee as much as we can. It was a great performance. You know what it actually reminded me of was 2011 Georgia Florida. Because at that point, Florida wasn't even a good team. It was Will Muschamp, year one. Like, at that point, Mark Richt was, I think, 2-8 versus Florida. Like, you know, probably 3 wins in a 20-year period Georgia had over Florida. And it's like, it was just something about that one. And then Georgia went on to win 3 straight over Florida. And it was like, that's what felt like it got the psychological, like, just, I don't know, just ghost that Florida was, boogeyman Florida was for Georgia for so many years. It's like Tennessee, like, I think I heard Josh Pate talking about it. It's like, if you tuned in, it's a 10.5 point favorite that won at home versus a team they were ranked higher than. They won by like 5, right? Was the final score.
38-33.
And it's just this, like, jubilation because you just had to get this win off, like, this monkey off your back. Like, this is what I referenced on our last show. Like, it felt like the future of Tennessee's program of, like, Heupel's tenure was, like, almost hanging on this game. Like, if you're not going to beat Florida this year,
the way they almost lost, there's no coming back. Like,
I'm sure. I mean, what was the feeling in the stadium when they got that onside kick? Like, there was time, you know, well, not a lot of time, but
people forgot the rules there a little bit, where you can't advance the ball.
Oh,
like,
you just keep running.
Yeah, he just kept going, and I think there was a strong gasp there at what was about to happen. It was like, no, he has to start back there.
Is there a reason for that rule? I feel like that would be amazing if you just get it and just start running. Like, I mean, that'd be incredible.
I guess. I don't know. Maybe it would be I really don't know. I
don't know wwhy it would be unfair to.
Where's Dean Blandino when you need him?
But yeah, there was. Yeah, I'm sure it would have just added to the laundry list of just heartbreaking. It may have been at the top of
That's
the
number
list
one. No, 1,000%. This was a 17-point lead with like 4 minutes to go.
Yeah.
I turned to Samantha and was like, I think when they went up 17, and then, I mean, obviously, the doom and gloom feeling is when Jalen Wright does the gator chomp and the throat slitting type gesture where you're like, oh, this we've seen this backfire before. This is not good. But it was one of those where I was like, I just don't think you have time, because what Florida was doing, and it was a smart way of playing, and this was something I was saying going in, was just that, like, they have to play ball control. They have to just do first down, second down, third down, first down, and just keep doing the little stuff. Not a bunch of chunk plays, just doing the little stuff.
You left one out, though.
What?
Fourth down.
Oh, and fourth down as well.
You know,
Billy Napier went for 4th and 2 deep. Like, there was something in them, like, I mean, just some. hey, the cojones on this guy. And look, I'm going to have some Billy Napier takes that we're going to have to get off on this podcast when we really dive into this game in a second. But
I think we should just go ahead and do it.
Let's just
dive into this game. This is the one you want to talk about. This is the biggest game of the weekend, I felt like.
Okay, well, let's get into it because I was in the building for this, Matt Green. And I mean, I got it up close. Billy Napier losing his absolute mind and getting held back by one of his 15 of his 37 personnel staff members as he's just losing his mind on what was an obvious touchdown that did not end up being a touchdown. I don't know if it was clear on TV that I think...
Because there was no angle of it. But it's like you can see the guy's whole body is basically... I'm sure that I have a good general idea of where the ball was in his torso. But there wasn't a real angle of it.
Yeah.
So but it just took forever. I think that's probably what Napier was upset about. It's like we've waited 5 minutes. It's like now we're making an announcement. We're going to review the play. So what the hell have we been doing if we're just hanging around
getting
here?
held back and just screaming and losing his mind. And then, but the other thing is like Tennessee ended up, I mean, obviously the personal foul, 15 yards. So we get 1st and goal from like the half-yard line. So that was just dumb. It just gave Tennessee...
What would that have been? Do you know?
Was that 4th and goal or 3rd and goal? It was one of the two. I think it might have been 4th and goal if they didn't get that in. I want to say it would have been, but it might have been 3rd and goal. And Napier, obviously, 15-yard and Swartzen, like 1st and goal from the half-yard line. Tennessee gets in right after that. But like the deep bomb down the right side, 4th and 2. Like I think they were at the Florida 27 when they went for it there. There was no respect for the Tennessee secondary. And look, I respect it because there were moments I remember. So we sat next to super nice Florida fans. Like on our side near the 50, and this was on the obviously where the Florida tickets were, and they were starting to blend in. So we weren't in the Florida section. That would have been horrific, but there were a lot of like inflatable Gators in our section, so people were like throwing around inflatable Gators, which was funny. And then one Tennessee fan like did this whole thing and like stabbed it multiple times and got a
so we're just condoning murdering alligators. That what we do in Neyland Stadium?
Man,
unacceptable.
I mean, the checkerboard was...
They were eating gator on College game day.
Yes. And you just... Turnage went in, so Kamal Hadden gets banged up. And this is where it's just so amazing, like how every single play matters and how on your game you have to be and how much you have to know the scouting report. Because I turned to the Florida fan and I was like, oh God, Turnage is in. And I think Turnage was on Ricky Pearsall on that play, and I was like, they're going to Pearsall. Like, they're going to challenge Brandon Turnage, who has not played, and basically has been a train wreck at the corner spot with Warren Burrell messed up, Kamal Hadden getting shaken up, and it's like, suddenly Tennessee, D. Williams already out. Like, there's no depth at the secondary, and the depth that we do have is just not great. And they immediately challenge him, and he gets beat deep, and that was it for him on the outside. But I don't know. I thought Richardson really surprised me. I think Richardson did a lot of good stuff. The annoying thing about Richardson, and now like when I heard the Big Ben comparison from a couple weeks ago, people were like, oh, I don't know about that. The thing about it is, and where I see it and seeing it up close, Tennessee should have had like 4 or 5 sacks in this game. Where Richardson was going down, and he's just so big, and he's so hard to sack. Like, it is a skill for him that he is going to turn 3rd and 17 off a sack into 3rd and 10 because he is able to get the ball. Like, his strength to still force an incompletion when he's going down, and Tennessee's got 2 dudes pulling to the ground, like either if it was Byron Young, if it was Joshua Josephs, who got a couple opportunities there. Amari Thomas had a really big game at the defensive tackle spot. I don't know. Like, he is just really, really frustrating to bring down, and that saved a lot of Florida drives. But, I mean, Florida's receivers stepped up. Shorter and Pearsall were top-notch in this game. But it was one of those where I was like, the way they're playing, it's just not going to keep up with Tennessee because Tennessee, right away, like the answers. And, I mean, the 99-yard drive to end the second quarter right before half and then to score right out of the gate in the third quarter was just the backbreaker where I was like, Florida can't keep pace with this. And the 99-yard backbreaker on the road right before the half when Tennessee gets the ball back is something you just can't do.
But that was the thing. It felt like so many of those Tennessee drives were backbreakers, but Florida just like kept getting up off the mat, and they just kept responding. And that's why, well, for one, I think this was the best game I've seen Anthony Richardson play. Like, he was actually like, say they were Tennessee, maybe their secondary is a question, but it's also like
no, there's no question.
I'm
It's
sure
bad.
part of the I'm sure
bad.
part of the game plan is let's leave these corners on an island and let's see if Anthony Richardson can actually beat us with his arm. And a lot of times he did. I mean, he made some perfect throws, and more than anything, just Billy Napier, I think deserves the most credit in this game for just keeping them in it. Because without the fourth downs, he knew we have to be able to score with Tennessee to win this game. The only way we can win is scoring touchdowns. Even some were like, you should probably take the field goal here. Even in field goal range, they
well, he missed one early, and I wonder if that spooked him.
That's possible, but it's like it felt. There's also the element of you had to have touchdowns to win this game, and for the most part, they put together a lot of touchdown drives, almost 600 yards of total offense. So this was an incredible game and a huge win for Tennessee. This is exactly what they need. And the bye week, I didn't realize the bye week until you said that. It couldn't be a more perfect time for a bye week, honestly. Have a letdown game after beating Florida, pounding your chest, in the top 10 now. Huge deal. Now you got a whole week, go to Baton Rouge, and then Alabama the week after that, right?
Yep.
So who knows? This is what we wanted. I told you before the season started. If Tennessee starts the year 5-0, it almost doesn't matter what happens the rest of the way.
Do they come back to game day for Bama, Tennessee? Do we get 2 game days this fall?
I mean, I don't know how you don't. I mean, that's what, 3 weeks from now, I guess, if they have the bye week. Just knowing how the top 10 works, somebody's probably going to lose at some point. Tennessee could be up by 5 or 6 at that point. Who knows?
They might be 4. If they're beat LSU, that's a lot of time for. I mean, Clemson probably. With
but
their
you got
schedule.
Clemson, Michigan. I don't necessarily know who they're going to
USC
lose
is
to.
definitely.
Kentucky is one ahead of Tennessee right now, and they have at Ole Miss next week. I'm sure most people. I don't know what that line is right now, but I would imagine Ole Miss is. Yeah. Okay. So they're going to be favored in that one, Ole Miss. So.
Yeah, I think Ole Miss
Tennessee, they could definitely get in the top 7 or 6 for that one. Game day's got to be there. Third Saturday of October, you got to be
Also,
there.
when are we ever going to see this again where they're both undefeated at the exact same time? This is just...
For sure.
The other thing, too, is... So I've seen a lot coming out of this is this was Hendon Hooker's Heisman coming out party, right? And seeing it, I don't know if it came across on TV, but, Hooker was making so much out of nothing. The offensive line was getting killed. And Florida deserves a lot of credit for what they did in the running game. Jalen Wright didn't have a good game. Jahari Small had a few big runs. But by and large, Tennessee is still not really running the ball that great to this point. But Hooker was running for his life. But he was able to just turn something. The Heisman moment part of it is just that, okay, no Cedric Tillman. That had me extremely nervous going in. Guess what? He's just going to find Brew McCoy. He's going to target Jalen. Ramel Keaton had the game of his life. He had 2 bonkers catches that maybe lost in infamy, but down the right-hand side, deep in the third, I want to say it was, where he extended, where you can't extend more than what Ramel Keaton did on that catch. That was an
incredible catch.
It was ridiculous. But Hooker just never faced. He doesn't throw interceptions. He doesn't fumble. He took a bunch of shots where, Princeton fan had a bad fumble inside the red zone. Tennessee did not punt in this game without Cedric Tillman. They did not punt once. There was no punting for Tennessee. And this is something that I've been banging this drum. This is an offensive-driven sport now. And Tennessee is just all gas and no brakes and pushing what that actually means to the absolute limit. But the main thing that I think people miss that Hendon Hooker deserves so much credit for is that the dude just does not kill you ever. He doesn't fumble. He doesn't throw interceptions. He's thrown 2 his entire time at Tennessee. 2 total. And this was a game where he had opportunities to fumble, to throw some bad picks, to succumb to some pressure because Tennessee got down. It was it was not going Tennessee's way in the first quarter. And it easily could have gone awry. And the dude is just not fazed by anything. Hendon Hooker is so strong mentally that it's unbelievable because you can get beaten up where you're oh man, I just went down and scored, and then the defense immediately is a turnstile and we're giving it up. It's hard for quarterbacks to be hey, I'm going to have to score 45 because our defense is going to give up 42 every week and still just do that. It was great that all these 5-star and 4-star, the Christian Conyers and the Jordan Matthews and the commits in this class, who are all DBs, by the way, were at this game. because Willie Martinez and company can be like, hey, this is why you're coming to Tennessee this upcoming year, because you're literally all playing next year. Like, this is what we're working with right now. You can go to Georgia, Ricky Gibson, but you're not playing. Malachi Starks is in there for a while. You go up and down the list. You're not getting on the field.
There's 2 or 3 5-stars that have come in the last 2 classes, I think, that aren't starting right now.
Yeah, like, you're not playing, like, anytime soon. Ricky Gibson and Jordan Matthews, you're starting next year. Like, you're just going right in. We need the help right now, and I think that's a big part of why Tennessee's been able to get some of these big names right now. But, I mean, if you get the monkey up...
Sorry, go ahead.
I mean, just the last thing, the thing about the Heisman stuff with Hendon is just Tennessee still has to win 10 games. Like, there's no Heisman conversation with Hendon Hooker unless Tennessee is 10-2 at the bare minimum. Like, you just don't see Heisman winners in that bet. Like, it's just, you have to win. You have to be in the college football playoff conversation. You have to be there in November, December. And it's just, it's not time. Like, we're not there yet. Like, we still have a lot of football in Tennessee. It will not be in his power to really get in that Heisman conversation, because, like, they still just have to win 10, maybe even 11 games for him to really make the finalist.
That's where I disagree, though. I mean, if you want to talk Heisman, like, in September, you know, like, Hendon Hooker is definitely in that conversation this early on. And I think it 100% is within his power, because there are opportunities on this schedule where if Hendon Hooker shows out, like, it's going to be undeniable how good he is. They upset Alabama, they upset Georgia or something like that. Like, the opportunities are there for Tennessee. Like, who knows if they're there and they are that 10-11 win team this season, but, like, that remains to be seen. The one thing, and as good as he looked, because I thought Hendon Hooker played a great game, I think you still do have to worry if you're Tennessee about, this is a Florida team that didn't look very good against South Florida, right? That didn't look very good against Kentucky, both playing at home. Why was Anthony Richardson, how was Anthony Richardson able to come in to this just hostile environment that Neyland Stadium was on Saturday, and have, like, the best game of his career? Honestly, like, they're like, what, 450 yards? Like,
I can tell you, the secondary was just bad, and there's no depth. There is no depth in the secondary. They are, I mean, not even having Warren Burrell was a huge issue, who's not been good to this point. So, I mean, that's what happened. They were just, like, the bodies were not there. Like, this is an extremely limited Tennessee secondary. Now, the pass rush was great, but the secondary is not good.
And that's where I would worry, because Jaden Daniels to this point, has been a better player than Anthony Richardson until we saw him play Tennessee, right? So he also gets to play Tennessee, and he's going to play him at home, and LSU has some really good wide receivers, assuming Bootie's back with the team next weekend. I think it's just like the birth of his daughter. Was that just this past weekend?
I'm not sure.
I think he missed a game, so I think he is still with the team and everything. So LSU does have probably better receivers than Florida does. So I don't know, in another hostile environment, that's going to provide its own challenge. So if maybe Tennessee can outscore everyone they play, but you do have to worry about a team just that hasn't been able to pass on anybody having so much success through the air.
Oh yeah, like, I'm extremely worried about it. Like, it's gonna happen. Like, it's gonna catch up to them. Like, the limits of their secondary and what this defense is able to do. I mean, it's gonna happen. Like, just eventually someone's gonna catch them. But the thing is, and this goes back to Hooker, how that comes back to bite them is mistakes by themselves. Like, mistakes by the offense, putting the defense in bad situations. It's already bad, and then making life significantly more difficult for them. And Hooker just doesn't do that. Like, it just never happens. So, I don't know. I mean, we'll see. But it's a huge win. You get a bye week. But I also think just showing that you can win without Cedric Tillman, and Hooker showing that he can find other ways, and he can just plug in Brew McCoy, get Ramel Keaton involved, who's just did not play the last 2 weeks before that, really. And, I mean, that's huge, is that Cedric Tillman, who's the best receiver in the SEC, was out, and Tennessee still didn't punt and miss a beat really offensively. Like, it shows that they are deeper than just, like, said 33% of his Hooker's targets, and it's like, that's a safety guy, and he needs him to keep this thing humming. It's like, no. They can find other ways, and they can evolve their offense a little bit based on who's available in their personnel.
Yeah, I think that was big to the performance without Tillman because he's a difference maker. But big time win. I'm glad you got to enjoy it in Knoxville.
Checkered Nealon, man, and just all the recruits. I'm telling you, folks, like the Coliseum and everything. There's just nothing like it.
I'm glad you brought that up because why don't they do that every week? Checker Nealon, it should be an every week thing. It's like the Penn State whiteout. Penn State whiteout. Do it every week. It's awesome.
They don't white out every week, do they?
I'm saying they should.
No,
do it every week.
It's gotta be special. It's gotta be special.
Checker Nealon looks so badass.
How about you just focus on your university just doing one blackout night a year and actually taking care of business there? Because that was a cool thing. You don't have to
do a blackout. Just rock the damn black jerseys once a year. Grinds my gears,
No, the blackout was good. You had Vern dancing in the booth. Like the blackout was fun.
It was cool. It just became too big of a thing, but I don't know.
What is wrong with it being a big thing?
Georgia ruined it. It's because Alabama. They allowed Alabama to take away their black jerseys forever. I mean, they have worn them a couple times since.
Well, I mean, you just beat Bama.
They wore those dog collar ones back in 2020. Just put those away forever.
Yeah.
They did rock the black against I think UL Lafayette. I think 2016. Kirby's
That's the University of Louisiana, sir.
I will say, I believe it was UL Lafayette in 2016.
Well, they're back to Lafayette
I remember Isaiah
McKenzie
McKenzie
just lost to Monroe. So now that Monroe, they're their true University of Illinois.
That should be the trophy.
Yes.
They get to whoever wins that gets to be University of Louisiana.
Right? That would be cool. I would like that. Shout out to what are they? The Warhawks now? The
Monroe, yeah.
They used to be something else. What did they used to be before?
Yeah, I think they had a Native American one that they changed. They may have just been the Indians or something. They had because
Arkansas State was that too, right? Wasn't Arkansas State?
They were the Indians, yeah. And then they're the Red Wolves.
Yes, the Butch Jones Red Wolves. Well, there you go. Great weekend. Shout out to Tennessee Country for pulling that off too. Electric 10 times out of 10 atmosphere, and I'm glad I was in the building and got to experience all of it because it was an absolute delight. Matt Green.
Also, Indians confirmed for
there you go.
ULM, old mascot.
Okay. Both Indians. Matt Green, your Georgia Bulldogs, before we get into some news, struggled a little bit with Kent State. What happened as someone who are one of those real Georgia fans, the real sickos who spent 3 hours of their Saturday watching Georgia Kent State? What happened? Explain this to me. I
unfortunately have to spend more of my noon slot on this one instead of some of the better games. But it was just a sloppy game, man. It was one of those. It was just Lad McConkey. Not to put anyone on blast, he seemed hungover in this one.
Oh, no.
Honestly, I don't know. I've never seen this guy.
Elaborate. What was going on with Lad?
So Georgia scored first possession, went up 7-0. Defense forced a 3-and-out first possession, and then McConkey muffed the punt inside the 10, and that gave Kent State 3 points. And then another drive where Georgia was easily moving down the field. He fumbled inside the 30 or so. And then there was a touchdown pass right in the middle of the field that he dropped. Two fumbles, multiple drops. I've never seen McConkey really play that poorly. But it was they outgained him. I think it was 529 to 281. It was Georgia was moving the ball, but it was just killing itself. 3 turnovers, it just kind of stalled some of the drives. And then the defense, just some uncharacteristic, just kind of missed assignments, that blown. They just threw it out to the outside. Those plays you never see work against the Georgia defense because their defensive backs typically just tackle so well. They're so disciplined. Guy just breaks up the sideline for a 50-yard touchdown. So it was just a sloppy game that I feel like Georgia just kind of allowed an inferior opponent to hang around. A couple of those turnovers probably, takes another 14 points off the board. So I feel like they played fine, but just didn't put away an inferior opponent.
So nothing too concerning. Nothing that other SEC foes can point to that Kent State did that they could use.
I wouldn't think so. It looked like Kirby was really getting in McConkey's face for that original punt because it was one where he should have called a fair catch, but he didn't, and he's just I read the word selfish coming out of Kirby Smart's mouth, because Because I guess, it makes sense. You're trying to do too much. Defense just did their job.
Yeah.
Catch the ball, get the offense back on the field. But one thing that stands out from this game, though, is for my green line stat of the week, Brock Bowers. I don't know if you saw this man. Maybe the best player in college football right now. 2 carries for 77 yards and 2 touchdowns on the ground. This guy, they just hand him the ball. It's just like, I don't know, give it to Bowers and he'll take it all the way. He also had 5 catches for 60 yards in this game. But I want you to guess.
I'm seeing this a lot. Can Georgia fans just pick who their best player is? Like, we get 1 week it's Stetson, 1 week it's Jalen Carter, 1 week it's Malachi Starks, 1 week it's Lad McConkey,
No one's said any of these things about Starks or
Kenny
McConkey. But Jalen Carter might be the best defensive lineman. I think he was hobbled for this one. He had a sprained ankle. I don't think he played much in this game. But Jalen Carter is like maybe a top 5 pick, and Brock Bowers, the way he's playing, who knows? He could go top 5, top 10.
He's a monster.
Kyle Pitts.
Yeah.
He's
one too. Like, if you watch him, like, can you imagine? He lucked out in a gigantic way of when he was born. This man's born 10 years ago. He is lost in the shuffle. Like, he is just like a fullback somewhere. He is just like...
Well, if he's someone that's 10 years ago, I'm glad you mentioned that. He's Aaron Hernandez, like, on the football field,
Yeah.
Aaron Hernandez he was that first tight end that I feel like you saw that was like, I'm not really sure what position this guy is, but he's a baller, and we'll just figure out ways to get him the ball. We can give it to him in the backfield. He can go deep. Like, he was just a weapon, and I think that's exactly what Brock Bowers is. And, I mean, Kyle Pitts, I've always said, is the best tight end I've ever seen in college, and I haven't always said that. I've said that since 2020 when he had his monster season. I think Brock Bowers is every bit as good as Kyle Pitts, and he seems more dynamic with the ball in his hands. So he's just kind of, I don't know, he's not like Hernandez, like he would like kind of break people off, juke people. It's like he runs more like a running back. It's like he doesn't juke like Nick Chubb. Like, Nick Chubb doesn't juke people. You try to tackle him and you can't. He just keeps running.
Yeah.
Like, Brock Bowers is just he's a baller, man. But I want you to guess his scoring percentage on his carries this season. Care to take a guess?
66.7%.
That would be incorrect, sir. His percentage is 100%. He has 3 carries for 85 yards this season and 3 touchdowns.
Has he really scored on every single carry?
Yes. It's just I think if the stats were honest, he wouldn't, because we got those little shuffle pass or the little jet sweep that you toss forward that are counted as pass plays sometimes. And I think he's probably got 2 or 3 of those on the year. But for actual statistic counted carries, 3 carries, 3 touchdowns this season. Like, just he's probably close to I have to look Georgia up, because Georgia hasn't had the greatest rushing attack so far this year. So he's probably pretty close to being the leading rusher on this team.
Interesting. Matt Green, a couple news items. We talked last week about Georgia Tech and where they could go in their next head coach, because we thought it was not going to go well. And unfortunately, the Jackets go down in Orlando. What do they call the UCF stadium? Is it the Boom? What do they call that place? They have a nickname for it.
Yeah, I think you're right. House of Boom or something like that?
Something like that.
Bounce House?
It's something.
The Bounce House? I think.
Bounce House sounds right. Bounce House sounds right. Well, the Bounce House ended the tenure of Geoff Collins at Georgia Tech. And one of the things I've seen, though, already is, like, Geoff Collins had a tough situation, because Geoff Collins was following Paul Johnson, who ran the triple for so many years, and he had these triple players, and he recruited well, but he had to get his guys in. He had to get his system in. Georgia Southern beat Nebraska, running an entirely different offense than what they were running. They were running the triple last year. And Clay Helton comes in right away, and it's like, no, I'm going to bring in Kyle Van Trees from Buffalo, and we're going to throw a forward pass, and then we're going to go and throw 600 whatever yards on Nebraska, and we're going to go win. That is a ridiculous take. Like, the reason Geoff Collins did not work out, like, we're not, you know what we're not doing? We're not attacking my guy, Paul Johnson, who went to the ACC title game, took this program to the Orange Bowl. Like, let's
I think
calm
there's
down.
a difference, though, because Georgia Southern, their talent wasn't inept for the talent they're playing against, right?
I mean, Nebraska is still Power 5 talent.
Well, yeah, they're definitely that's coaching for sure. They don't have as good of players as Nebraska. Well, they shouldn't. Who knows with how
Clay Helton's just a good coach. Like Clay Helton was not the right guy at USC, but he is a good football coach. Geoff Collins
Georgia
was
Tech
15 and 10 at Temple.
But Georgia Tech's level of talent was just nowhere close near the competition they're playing. I think Georgia Southern at least had competent level of talent for their level of competition.
I mean, I just feel like it was like if he had kept his job, it's gonna be like year 7. It's like, look, he's recruiting really well, but it's really hard to get over running the triple for as long as you do on the flats, and like you got to give Geoff Collins a little bit more time. And it's like year 13, and it's like Geoff Collins is really turning the corner here, and it seems like he's really got his players.
The academics are really tough.
There's gonna be another excuse. Like I couldn't do it. I'm like, you've had time. Like the players are in. He recruited pretty well. That's the thing is like that's the thing I was thinking about after Collins and who the next coach is, whoever it is, and like I think you and I are both hoping for Prime because that will make the state of Georgia far more interesting in this battle between Tech and UGA. But like, I mean, if I'm Prime, I'm not taking this job. I think you can do better than Georgia Tech at this point. But it also looks like it's gonna be a combination where Stansberry, who is the current AD, looks like he's on the way out as well. So I don't know. There might be a full-on transition, and Georgia Tech is going to be facing some real challenges, and they are going to have to really figure out who they want to be in this new college sports model. Like, do you want to be big NIL players? Do you want to spend big on football? Do you really, really want to challenge the Clemsons, the Georgias, the Alabamas, the Tennessees, North Carolinas even? Like, just what North Carolina's doing with Mac Brown and company? Like, do you want to get in that game or do you not? Do you want to be Wake or do you not?
It feels like they're a step away from just being like, we're a good school. Sports really aren't that important. We'll go down a level of competition if we need to. Like they do not seem like a school that's going to be like, it's been a while, since we were really competitive. We're going to go all in and throw a bunch of money at the head coach and all the facilities and the staff. They just don't feel like the kind of program that's going to do that. Like I don't know. It's hard. Like Georgia Tech went to a bowl game every year from 97 to 2014. Like it's like, what is that? Like almost 20 years in a row? Like 17, 18 years in a row? Like that's the bare minimum. And Collins, I the one thing I'll say is I'll never defend a September firing. Because it's like, if you're going to fire someone in September, you should have fired them the season before. Like, you didn't learn anything about Geoff Collins in 4 games that you didn't already think about him when the 2021 season ended.
Well, here's the thing. It's not just that. They're trying to get a head start on picking the next guy. Like, if you fire early, like, Nebraska's got their pick of the litter, right? Like, they're able to spend months interviewing and getting ready and formulating their process and kind of being a step ahead of other programs. So I think I would say that's more of the reason you see it in September. It's just that these schools want to have the time to get their guy and be ahead of the pack.
That could be it. It's like you could have done this last year, right? Like why you should have started looking last year. Like you knew what was happening. Like
I think we all did. Yeah.
3 years, 4 years feels harsh to not give someone 4 years to prove it. It's like a full recruiting cycle kind of thing. It seemed just kind of common wisdom, but there's just nothing to really be excited about. Like,
but see, I think you throw that out the door now with the transfer portal. I think you throw that out. I don't think you get that. You can flip the program a lot quicker now. I don't think you get that 3 to 4 years anymore. I think you get 2 at most schools, where I think that's how it should be. You should see the progress in 2. Tennessee had nothing in the cupboard. The exodus, Henry To'oTo'o and company that left after Pruitt got fired, and everything of where that program was in January of 2021 to now being the 6th best program in college football. If they can flip that in a year and a half, it's just, you can flip a lot and you can change a lot if you get the right guy and the right system. I mean, look at USC. They're right back in contention automatically. Like USC, and I think I've been texting you. I was like, Tennessee is Lincoln Riley East. Like we're going to end, like Tennessee has built the USC and Oklahoma model just on an SEC level. And we'll see if that ultimately leads to any playoff wins, because it hasn't for Lincoln Riley. But what it did do is it raised the floor so much that they're in that zone where I'm like, well, I always wonder, is Alex Grinch or is Tim Banks or insert DC here? Is the defense ever going to be enough to actually win multiple playoff games or really, really contend? I mean, I don't know, but you can flip it pretty quickly. I mean, look at Washington this year. They had one of the worst offenses in college football last year. Jimmy Lake was a disaster with the hiring of John Donovan. 1 year, done. Michael Penix in the building. They're now an electric offense. They're top 10 per CFB stats in scoring. They're undefeated. Flip the script automatically. Like, you don't get that time anymore. If you're the guy, you're the guy. You're going to flip it.
No, the biggest thing Geoff Collins did was start repping Atlanta, the 404 things, even though he's lame and there's all his Waffle House stuff. I've said for years that Georgia Tech needs to rep Atlanta, and he got him with Adidas uniforms. That was like half of the battle. It was like these Russell Athletic uniforms. No one has Russell like North Carolina High School. North Carolina High School hasn't had Russell Athletic uniforms since 2004.
Well, to be fair, isn't Russell Athletics their founder from Tech? Didn't he go to Tech? Wasn't that the connection?
I don't even know, but that would make a lot more sense. But
I think that's why that was the case.
They look like a Division I football program again.
I would agree with that. But I want to say
they don't play like one. But
I think he went to Tech. But I could be wrong.
That could be.
Well, Matt Green, there was a couple other quick things to touch on. Dirk Cutter, the new OC at Boise, as Boise goes down again this weekend. Not going great for Andy Avalos up there in Boise country. The Broncos are down a little bit. So Dirk Cutter, longtime NFL OC head coach and OG over there in the blue field back in the late 90s, early 2000s. Like, the guy has been a Boise lifer, essentially one of the early adopters to getting that Boise program cooking up there.
He had
in the
multiple
Northwest.
stints with the Falcons, didn't he?
Oh yeah, multiple stints with the Falcons.
So he's good with how good the Falcons.
I mean, he was the head coach at Arizona State. I mean, if you look at Dirk Cutter's career, man, he has been all over the freaking map.
Yeah.
But hey, shout out to him, and we'll see what happens with Boise. Last thing before we get in our recap, Matt Green, the AP poll. Top 25 is out. We got a little bit of movement. We saw Penn State rise to 11, Tennessee to 8, Kentucky to 7. Not a lot of movement. Top 5 stays the exact same. Washington, we just alluded to, now 15th. A&M bounces back to 17th. OU falls 12 spots to 18th. Arkansas falls 10 to 20th. A lot of people were, let me point this out. There were a lot of people surprised Kansas was not a top 25 team. Folks, I am going to have to read off who the Kansas Jayhawks have beaten to start the 2022 football season. And this is not a shot at the Kansas Jayhawks football team. Hold on. This is okay. The basketball schedule came out first when I literally typed in the football schedule. That's all you need to know about the Kansas football program right now. What I am saying is, okay, they beat Tennessee Tech, West Virginia, Houston, struggle bus. Dana Holgerson, some really frustrated comments after.
It's a good win, though, for sure, for Kansas.
And then Duke at home. All right, that's fine. Like, the West Virginia win, Houston win, yeah, impressive for Kansas. But the teams, who are you dropping? Are you, like, on a neutral site? Is it Kansas State? Is it Florida State who's undefeated? Is it Pitt? Is it Minnesota? Is it Wake? Like, who are you dropping?
Like Kansas had Arkansas or something?
Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, where is this? Who are you dropping? Who's getting dropped? Like, it's just not real. We all know that Kansas is not one of the 25 best programs in college football right now. Like, it's silly. Like, let's give them their due. Like, Lance Leipold is doing the Lord's work over there in Lawrence, but they are not getting snubbed by not being one of the top 25 teams this week. That's silly. Get out of here.
Yeah, I saw Tom Fernelli, I think, going on a Twitter rant about, the SEC bias or whatever, and not the people, the brand bias, and not ranking Kansas. And it's like, I saw so many Kansas fans in the comments that are kind of like, We appreciate it, but we're just kind of enjoying like the 4 wins right now. We really don't. You don't have to put us in the top 25. Like,
There's no conspiracy to keep Kansas out of the top 25. Jaden Daniels is awesome. Or Jalen Daniels, excuse me, is awesome. Like, we're all rooting for you, but you're not one of the 25 best teams in college football right now. Like, that's silly. Did you have any other thoughts on the rankings?
Well, no, I didn't. I thought that segued nicely, though, into one thing I wanted to talk about, which is the Big 12. Is the Big 12, like, the most exciting conference in college football this year? Like, we've only had 4 games in conference play so far. And, like, every single one of them has been an upset. Like, Kansas beating West Virginia was an upset. Texas Tech over Texas. Baylor beating Iowa State, not a rankings upset, but they were favored. And then Kansas State beating Oklahoma. Like, I have no idea who the best team in this conference is right now. And I'm just, I'm excited for it.
They supposed to be SEC, man. Texas Tech, Kansas State knocking off OU and Texas in the same weekend.
Were the SEC chants out this weekend? I didn't actually see them, but I've seen that level of trolling to Texas and Oklahoma these days.
I mean, Oklahoma's probably still the best team. Like, I think there might be a reaction because we'll get into OU Kansas State. There just might be something about the devil magic of Kansas State versus OU that you just kind of have to toss out the window whenever they play. Like, I think OU's probably the best team in the conference, but if it's not, it's Oklahoma State. It would still be my top 2. Would you have a different top 2?
I might say Baylor is the best team in this conference. I do. At the end of the day, it feels like, I don't know, just every Big 12 season is like, oh, craziness, who's the best? Yeah. And then it's like Oklahoma plays someone in the Big 12 championship and Oklahoma wins. But right now, I don't know. I think I just like Dave Aranda. I like this Baylor team. And I think going at Iowa State, like that's a big-time win. So it's not necessarily a ranked opponent or anything, but it's like Baylor's still at that level of like, you need to win the games you should win, right? Like if they had not dropped the game to TCU late last season, like they're in the college football playoff. So they need to get to that point that they take care of business against the teams they should beat. But yeah, right now I'd probably say Baylor and Oklahoma, but I feel like Oklahoma State's a sneaky one that's not really getting talked about too much.
I mean, we'll see. We'll see. Ultimately, BYU also in that mix. Cincinnati, man, if they were in that conference this year, the Big 12 be cooking with some grease.
Once
here.
Oklahoma and Texas leave, it really is gonna just be totally open every single season.
Anarchy. Total anarchy in the Big 12.
Hold on, one last thing. Who's the first one to win a Big 12 title?
Of those 4?
Yeah, of the new 4.
BYU.
Oh, I kind of wanted to go BYU too. I don't know, something about BYU. Cincinnati, I still need to see that, like, this wasn't the kind of a couple year thing, if they're really that program year in and year out.
I feel like BYU's the safest. They got they're the safest.
UCF though, they've obviously recruited really well they feel like they just, maybe the Florida base kind of gives me the idea of like they feel like that school that's going to clean up the portal. Like guys transferring from Florida State, Florida. From
no,
SEC
the Sun Belt's
schools.
got that on lock, Matt Green. The Sun Belt already wrapped that one up. Sun Belt is just
true.
That's their bread and butter. I don't know. I'm just not a Gus Bus guy in 2022. I don't know. I don't know if I see him in 2024 raising the Big 12 trophy for.
Hey, you never know, man.
I don't know. I mean, I could be wrong.
He's beaten Saban a few times. Who's the elder? Gundy? Gundy's the clear.
Yeah.
Gundy and Fickle are the clear, probably best coaches in the Big 12 at that point.
Hold on, Matt Campbell, sir. Throw out Matt Campbell in there.
I would put Fick. I think I did rank Gundy and Fickle ahead of Matt Campbell in our coaching rankings. I think they're near the top of the. They're both top 10 coaches.
I would agree. They're in there too. Matt Green, our week 4 recap begins now. But how do we do? As we discuss at the top of every show, how did we fare this weekend?
So I want to start it off with Zeus in his home dog of the week. Not only has he given you 2 winners against the spread these past 2 weeks, but he's given you outright winners, the home dog. Texas Tech like I told you, it wasn't necessarily about Texas Tech. They hadn't done anything to that point to really be encouraged about the quarterback play or the team you're going to get. But Texas without Quinn Ewers, I'm just not that impressed. And Texas Tech just did a lot to just stay in this game. But overall, I gained one more game on you again this week. Overall, I was 8-3, and you were 7-4. But against the spread, you have evened things up on the season, sir. You went 5-6 against the spread this week. I went 4-7. We are now both 22, 23, and 2 against the spread, and you are 34-13 overall to my 30-17 record. And
44-13. I like it.
34-13.
Oh, 34-14. Yeah.
And Zeus is also 2-2 on the season.
Hey, he's getting back. He's on a little bit of a hot streak. Did he start 0-2?
He did start 0-2, so we'll see what we got in week 5. See if he can keep that winning streak alive.
Well, you mentioned Texas. We already talked about Tennessee, Florida. Texas, obviously, no Quinn Ewers. Hudson Card is in this one. Texas Tech able to take down their rival in Lubbock. What did you make of Texas Tech actually pulling this one out?
I feel like this was just like a team that just didn't go away. Like Texas Tech what were they on? 6 of 8 on 4th down in this game. It was just absolutely rolling the dice, just going for it every time. Like I was very impressed by Texas Tech in this one. And Texas, more than anything, Texas just kind of didn't put them away. Like the offense just, I don't know, in the what would they have, 3 points in the fourth quarter, 10 points in the second half. Like Texas Tech was just the better team in the second half.
Post game, Joe McGuire, the head coach of Texas Tech, said, quote, "The country's going to find out everything runs through Lubbock."
I love it, man.
Look, man, they're another example. They flipped it. They were playing classic Texas Tech football. Do you know who else was in attendance for this one? Rocking Texas Tech, chains and glamour.
Was Mahomes at this one?
Ric Flair decked out.
How many teams does this man have? He was
got
a
a
Georgia fan at one point, and then I think he was a Michigan fan. Now he's repping Texas Tech.
I think people are really looking for reasons not to believe in Sark in this group. I'm like, they're banged up, man. And look, they should have won this game. It was a bad Bijan Robinson fumble late. Like that was a backbreaker, obviously. But like, look, we've seen what this team looked like with Quinn Ewers and when they were basically at full strength in the first quarter of that Alabama game. I'm just not worried about Texas yet. Let me see what they look like with Quinn Ewers, with the healthy squad, and because I mean, I'm not there. I still am a believer in Sark and what they're doing. I'm not there to hit the panic button in Austin. It's a road game, crazy offense. Look, it happens. That's one, if they play that game 100 times, Texas wins 99.
Probably, yeah. I definitely wouldn't increase the temperature on Steve Sarkisian's seat or anything. I felt like the Alabama game, what they did for 3 quarters without Quinn Ewers, was about as impressive of a coaching job as he's shown so far. So, yeah, I wouldn't be worried. I still do have confidence that Sark has this thing going in the right direction. The injuries, they can derail a season.
Where are we going next, Matt Green?
I don't have the sheet.
I got it. We'll do it. I'll lead. I'll lead the recap shows, and you can lead the preview shows.
There you go.
Where we're going. Next up, Clemson, Wake Forest, where we talked about in the pod, where Clemson has the last 4 years blown the doors off the Demon Deacons, and it looked like that way early. I think I sent you a text where I was like, before I headed out to Neyland, I was like, man, it's gonna happen again. Like Clemson was up, I think 2 touchdowns early, and it looked like, this is gonna happen all over again. Will Shipley finding open space to run, TJ dealing a little bit, and then Sam Hartman, never say die. 6 touchdown passes in this one. He ties an ACC and Wake Forest record for most touchdown passes in a single game. Hartman left it on the line, but ultimately, late interception by Clemson in, what was it, double overtime?
Yeah, it was double overtime.
And look, they gave it their absolute all. Impressive game from Dave Clawson and the Demon Deacons to push Clemson to that point. So I ask you, Clemson getting pushed that much by Wake, is it a positive that they were able to withstand that on the road and still get the W, or do you think it's another reason to just be like, this Clemson team's going to lose one and they're just not a real playoff championship threat?
I think that's a good question. I think most of us probably didn't think they could win a game like this and have to score 45, what was it? Or 51, but what was it? 37 in regulation, 38 in regulation. Like, I don't think any of us really thought Clemson's offense had this in them. And, we saw Wake Forest, we've seen how this team can get into shootouts. And, maybe Wake Forest's defense is just that bad. And that's why DJU was able to, get cooking on this team. But I think you have to be encouraged to an extent because this Wake Forest offense, they're still likely to be one of the better offenses in the ACC. So we know, I feel confident at least that Clemson plays good defense. They're a good defensive team just year in and year out. Obviously, no Venables this year. Might not know exactly who they are. But in general, I feel confident that Clemson is not going to have a bad defense. So if you can actually get in a game like this and a shootout with an offensive team and come away with a victory on the road, you might not be super encouraged as a Clemson fan because of where your program has been, but maybe you just need to recalibrate a little bit and no, we're not quite there, but Wake Forest is a good team. This is a good offense, and it's a good win. It's a ranked opponent. You can't just be discouraged. You were a 7-point favorite or something, right? In this win, you won by 6. It's essentially is what was expected to happen.
Yeah, and that's ultimately what it did, and they live to fight another day. Next up, Matt Green, we are going to Michigan, where Blake Corum, I think, ran for another 5 yards since we started the sentence here. Big game for him in Michigan on the ground. They went in a different way, kind of what we saw a lot of last year with Cade McNamara at under center. J.J. McCarthy had some bonkers runabouts in this one. He's so much fun to watch. But also, Baby Tua was also awesome in this one. Really, really fought hard. I thought this was another. I don't want to do the Butch Jones, just hey, this was a this is a good loss to have. This is a champion to life stuff, but Maryland fought really, really hard in this one, and that the fact that they really did not bend and they really punched Michigan in the mouth and really had an opportunity to win this game late, they just did not go away. And I think this was a huge step in the right direction for Maryland, who, kind of like Wake Forest, had been getting bounced by Jim Harbaugh and this Michigan team over the last few years, and they showed real progress as a program to be able to play 4 strong quarters against the Wolverines. Did you have the same kind of takeaway, or did you have a different one?
No, I pretty much agree with you on this one. I think you have to, obviously there's no moral victories, but you went into the big house, what was it, 17-point favorite, Michigan, pretty big spread, and you hung with them every step of the way. So I think this was the first real test Michigan has had this year, just a Charmin soft first 3 games for Michigan to start this season. So you finally got to see what they were made of, playing against an actual competitive Big Ten opponent. So yeah, Blake Corum absolutely went off in this game. So you got to be encouraged. Michigan can win multiple ways. They're that classic run first traditional offense, but when you need to pass, you need to make a play through the air. McCarthy seems like he's just a more dangerous playmaker than they had with Cade McNamara.
Absolutely. Next up, we talked about this team a little bit in Baylor's big win. A nice bounce back win for Baylor. Iowa State, horrible in penalties. This was the game from hell for the Clones. This is a rough one for Iowa State, but they fall to Baylor in another close one, but it was one where you're all right, well, everyone's back on Baylor, and this could have been a big win for the Iowa State Cyclones to get to 4-0 and to really establish themselves in the Big 12. Hunter Dekkers did not have his best game, who's been really good to this point in the season, but ultimately Baylor really, really shut down Iowa State and what they wanted to do running the football. Iowa State ran for just 66 yards and averaged 2.4 yards per carry. So the Baylor defense stepped up in a big way, and the offense did what they needed to do to win a big, big, big road game in Ames. What did you make of it?
Yeah, exactly. You said exactly what I was going to say. The way they shut the running game down, I think, was the key to this one. And that's why with Dave Aranda's club, like, it feels like this team has a higher floor than just about anybody in the Big 12, maybe not named Oklahoma. Like, I feel like you know what you're getting. They got a couple interceptions, shut down the run. Like, Blake Shapen is just super solid. I feel like you just know what you're getting with Baylor, and I just think they're just a solid team all around.
For sure. Next up, Matt Green, crazy one. Notre Dame, North Carolina. North Carolina is just like what the doctor ordered. If you're having some offensive problems and you're just not happy with where your offense is going, just add the University of North Carolina to your schedule. You'll be better off for it. I'm actually kind of surprised Tennessee doesn't play North Carolina more often in football. But against North Carolina, the Notre Dame had 287 yards on the ground. They ran for 5.6 yards per carry against the Tar Heels in a blowout win, as Notre Dame has kind of gotten back on track a little bit. So it's not going to be a 3-9 season from hell for Notre Dame. They're going to be fine. But, I mean, look, all you need is North Carolina, who were undefeated to this point with a top 10 offense and a bottom 10 defense. But it turns out having a defense that bad will finally come back to bite you. And you made Notre Dame's just really pedestrian offense look like Tennessee on an average Saturday in the fall. So that's never something you want to do with North Carolina. But were you at all surprised with how this ultimately went for the Irish?
I'd say I was shocked. Not shocked by this outcome, because you just can't put that much on North Carolina. And I thought North Carolina was going to win this game. Personally, I picked North Carolina. I just have not been impressed from Notre Dame's offense, but I guess I wasn't calculating the fact that Notre Dame was going up against North Carolina's defense. And so, like you said, like this is exactly what the doctor ordered. This game was never close. Like they were blowing them out from the second quarter on. So yeah, I think this is exactly what Notre Dame needed. And maybe they can. Maybe it's not the season from hell like we thought. Maybe Marcus Freeman isn't on the hot seat or anything. But they got a bye week before we get the Catholics versus the Mormons. Mm-hmm. So that'll be a good one. That'll be a nice barometer to see right where Notre Dame really is. Because I think BYU do they have the best schedule in college football? Like
they really do.
Like each week they're just like, oh, they're playing another solid Power 5 team. Like I wish everyone in college football would do this. But yeah, so that should be a good one.
Why don't they play every year? That's one that should definitely happen every year.
Yeah, we need to make that a rivalry.
Also BYU, Coastal Carolina, Mullets versus what did they do? What was that one?
I guess it was Mormons versus the Mullets. I guess.
Yeah, Mormons versus the Mullets. Like that's one we should do, because that was, our favorite COVID game of 2020. That was awesome. Oregon, Bo Nix is back. Matt Green dealing, old friend. Can we go ahead and say Bo Nix deserves some credit? Like, he saw the writing on the wall. He experienced last year in the Brian Harsin quarterback system and what was going on in the Plains. The dude's entire family bleeds orange and blue. Like, they're just all Bo Nix. His dad played at Bo Nix. He played at Auburn. Auburn. TJ Finley goes down. Zach Calzada out for the year with shoulder surgery, I think it was. Robbie Ashford gets hurt in this game against Mizzou, which was an absolute mess of a game that we'll maybe briefly touch on, but both teams really lost that one. And Bo Nix is out here. People really, really overreacted to losing to the best team in college football in a rough way in week one. The dude since then, he had a bad pick six in this one against Wazoo, but Bo Nix is dealing the last few weeks, and I think he deserves a lot of credit for making the jump to Eugene. He has a career high in passing yards against the Cougs this weekend in a big gutsy effort on the road. And Oregon looks, I'm telling you folks, people are like, USC is sitting there. I trust Oregon and Utah more. I don't trust the Trojans, and we'll get to why in a little bit, but I don't know, man. Oregon looks really, really good right now, and Bo Nix is pretty comfortable with Dillingham and company. And hey, good for Bo Nix, man. He's having a good time the last few weeks. What did you make of this win on the road in Coug country?
Yeah, I definitely agree. I was impressed with Bo Nix in this one. I was so close to making this my home dog of the week. I just felt like going into Pullman, there's just something weird. Washington State is just a tricky team like that. Like Cam Ward played great in this game, and with 6 minutes and 42 seconds left in this game, Washington State took a 34-22 lead. By the time there was a minute 21 left, Oregon was up 44-34. Like, just 29 points in the fourth quarter. They absolutely just went off. The pick six and everything. So we thought we were going to get Oregon to cover here, but Washington State snuck in the back door there at the end. But, yeah, you got to be impressed with Oregon. Right now, I mean, I would have said a week ago I thought USC's been the most impressive team in the Pac-12. You know, we'll get to them. But I think Oregon right now, I really like how Oregon looks. And like you said, maybe we all overreacted to them just getting dominated by the number one team in college football. Like and you know, games get out of hand. You know, you get down 3 or 4 scores, and you know, maybe Georgia's 3 or 4 scores better than Oregon, but you know, 49-3, like I'm sure they're not 46 points better than Oregon any given Saturday. But that's what happened that day. You know, games kind of get out of hand. I think Oregon is still a good team, and Dan Lanning, you know, he's still a young coach, and you know, we'll see what happens.
Oregon, I think they're still probably a top 10 team, and I mean they still have top 10 talent. I don't know. I think people really went over the top in just writing Oregon off, and I think Dan Lanning has got this thing cooking and got Oregon in a really good place. And it's a great weekend to be an Oregon fan. Mario Cristobal going down at home to Middle Tennessee State. I think that was Middle Tennessee State's first win versus an AP top 25 team in program history. So shout out to the Blue Raiders over here in Murfreesboro. But yeah, it was a great weekend to be a Duck, I'll say.
So how do we? I don't even know what to make of Miami. Like
they're bad, Matt Green.
Like Tyler Van Dyke, is he's benched
gone
now? Like this is.
I mean, he's been awful. Have you gone through his numbers through the first 4 weeks? He's been bad.
Yeah, I mean, and that's kind of how I felt with the Texas A&M game. It was like the team A&M played well, but it was like part of it just Miami just looks so bad.
Well, hold on. You have an ACC thing you want to talk about here. Like let's lump Van Dyke in with your ACC quarterback thing that you want to hit on here.
Yeah, it feels like the ACC quarterbacks have been a little underwhelming. Like for how much praise this conference got for being like 10 deep at quarterback. Like I think Sam Hartman has still looked really good. Like, but who am I thinking of the top of my head? Tyler Van
Drake
Dyke,
May's good.
Brennan Armstrong. I feel like both of those guys. Brennan Armstrong looked awful against
Devin Leary's been good.
Devin Leary, they struggle with East Carolina, but the last 3 weeks he's looked a lot better, and I'm excited.
Jordan Travis has been good. He's been a surprise.
And Uyunglele was good versus Wake Forest, but he still, I mean, he's kind of looked like the same guy.
Coach Jacobic's fallen off a cliff. BC is awful. BC is awful. But
so
see, like here's the thing: Garrett Schrader is playing really well for Syracuse, 4-0 Qs. But part of the Brennan Armstrong thing is because the quarterback whisperer and that staff from Bronco Mendenhall went up to Syracuse. And then, wouldn't you know it, Brennan Schrader is now a really great player for Qs this year with Dino Babers and company. So I think his name's Robert Anai, the OC over there. But yeah, I mean, I think there's a case that they were a little overrated. But, I mean, who's the best quarterback conference if it's not the ACC to start off this year?
I mean, I think you'd have to go with the SEC. I mean, the top 4 in the SEC right now, like Stetson Bennett, like is getting Heisman love. You know what I mean? And I don't think Stetson Bennett is a better player than KJ Jefferson or Hendon Hooker probably. I think there's a conversation maybe to be had. Like he's there's that good stat that people are throwing out that is 250 yards passing and a rushing touchdown in like 4 straight games, and no one's done that since Tim Tebow. But you got Bryce Young. I would say KJ Jefferson. I mean, I was very impressed with KJ Jefferson in this A&M game that we'll get to. And then Hendon Hooker. Like, I feel like you had to get down the line to get to Will Rogers and Max Johnson, and I mean Will Levis. Like, we talk about Anthony Richardson like he's a garbage player. He might be like the 10th best quarterback in the SEC, and this guy still has a lot of potential. So I don't know. I feel like the top 2 or 3 in the ACC could probably match the SEC, but after that, I haven't been that impressed with most of the quarterbacks that are getting a lot of love.
I would still probably lead in Pac-12 based on everything I've seen. I mean, look at this. Cam Rising, Cam Ward, DTR, Tanner McKee, Caleb Williams, Michael Penix Jr., who's been incredible at Washington. Chance Nolan had a really great game for Oregon State. He's been good. Bo Nix, obviously, popping big time. Jaden DeLore has been really good at Arizona. So I think there's a strong case for the Pac-12 too. But I mean,
I think I'm taking all 4 of those best quarterbacks in the SEC. I'm taking all 4 of those over every quarterback in the Pac-12 personally.
Which 4?
I'm taking Bryce Young, KJ Jefferson, Hendon Hooker, and Stetson Bennett.
I'm not taking KJ over Caleb Williams. That's not happening.
Outside of Caleb Williams, guys, I mean, even Caleb Williams has left something to be desired. Like,
I'm not even
I don't know.
He's had I don't even know if I take him over Michael Penix.
Caleb Williams is the one. Outside of Caleb Williams, I think there's a conversation.
Maybe not even Cam Rising.
But yeah, Cam Rising. I was not impressed with how Cam Rising played against Florida. It's just one game, probably the one I've watched the most of Utah so far. But I don't know. I think the SEC, the quarterback play has been very strong so far.
Isn't it weird how things change? Because that was the biggest indictment on SEC football, and why a lot of national folks, and rightfully so, were just like, this kind of sucks to watch. We get that you guys have the talent and that you're going to win the title, but like, it kind of sucks watching these games because the quarterback play is terrible. There's a reason that none of these guys are getting drafted in the first round of the NFL draft. There's a reason that like this is an issue and that we don't like it. And there was a reason that, I mean, the LSU Alabama national title game with Jordan Jefferson under center for, or was it Jordan Jefferson, right? Wasn't that the guy's name? Back in the day. So it's like, long gone are those days of premier SEC teams.
I think they even played 2 quarterbacks in the national championship. They had the other dude, was it Jarrett Lee or something?
That sounds right.
They were like going back and like they didn't even know who the quarterback was, and they were in the national championship game. Mm-hmm. Like they were, that offense.
You can't do that anymore. That's gone. But we'll see. I mean, speaking of, like, who'll be under center for Auburn this week? Matt Green, next up. We've talked about this game a little bit. Arkansas A&M. We had the all-time doink in this one. You don't see a doink.
Never seen it. Never seen anything like that.
I was paying more attention to Buckeyes Wisconsin in this one. So I watched A&M Arky back a little bit this morning. But what did you see? I feel like you paid closer attention to this one because it just looked like another mess, like a crazy defensive touchdown for A&M that saved them.
I came away just thinking, how did A&M win? Like, I just don't feel like they were the better team at any point. Yeah, but like you said, that KJ Jefferson, that fumble on the goal line, like that's going to put them up 21-7. And after that point, I think, let me see, they were averaging like almost 7 yards a play to that point, had 14 points and were like on the doorstep of a third touchdown. And after that point, they had, 33 plays for 133 yards in their last 5 drives, like scored 7 points, like were 4 points a play, like had one scoring drive the whole rest of the game. Like it was weird. It felt like Arkansas was clearly the better team. And Max Johnson in this game, it was like, he's solid. He just didn't really do anything. Like my biggest takeaway from this game for Texas A&M, besides their defense just finding ways to win games, basically, is Devon Achane. Like, if we're talking September Heisman right now, like Devon Achane, put his name in there. Like, this guy's been like the most electrifying running back I've seen in college football right now. Like he just looks like a touchdown waiting to happen. Like he's just gonna bust at any moment. So I feel like A-Chain is just a baller, and I think I definitely found myself rooting for Arkansas in this one. Maybe just because I wanted it to set up the undefeated matchup with Alabama next week, but I don't know. I came away just being shocked. Like A&M
I'm actually kind of
just
glad
won
that
this
didn't
game.
happen because like they're gonna do that. You knew they were gonna be like Arkansas. This is the time, and then Bama wins 45-14. They're not beating Alabama. That's not the team that beats Alabama. Arkansas.
It's in Fayetteville, man. I think that's definitely a dangerous game for Alabama.
Go ahead and lock this one up, folks. We're recording this on a Sunday night. Like you can go ahead and lock in whatever the over/under is for Bama beating Arkansas.
Who is a better team right now? Texas with Hudson Card, or Arkansas with KJ Jefferson?
Here's what you also got to throw in: is Alabama a better team than they were that week?
3 weeks ago? Are they?
They just got Vandy over there to beat 55-3 there. Oh, speaking of
Vandy. What do we learn from anyone beating Vandy 55-3?
Hey.
Also, shout out to Vanderbilt. I'm glad you brought that up. I have a note for that game. Vanderbilt scored on Alabama for the first time since 2007. They don't play them every year. They've played them 3 times since 2000. This is the third matchup since 2007. I think Alabama's now outscored them the last 3 matchups. What did I have it here? Oh, man, I'm losing it in my notes. 148-3 in the last 3 matchups. So, it was 24-10 back in 07, and last 2 have been just shutouts. Just that's what Alabama does to Vanderbilt. But keeping it back on so I don't think we've learned anything from Alabama. I think they've beaten up their cupcakes, and then they had the one close game with Texas. So I think there's still a lot to be learned. We're going to get to that, obviously later in the week when we talk about that game. But I think Arkansas is still a dangerous team. I'm just like Jimbo Fisher is supposed to be the offensive guy. Like this feels like Brian Billick coaching the Ravens. Like he came in, it's like he's the offensive guru or whatever. It's like, well, your offense is terrible. Like this defense is just winning games week in and week out. What would you say it is you do here? You know what I mean? Like we hear that Jimbo Fisher is the quarterback guru, and each week this offense just looks inept. And I feel like A-Chain and some of these playmakers have kind of disguised how inept it is because they'll just make an individual play. And so A&M still finds themselves 3-1. Obviously, the loss to App State looks bad, but it's not preventing them from getting to a conference championship or anything like that. So A&M with another win, but I still feel like Arkansas is a good team. I still feel like they're going to be the second best team in the West by the end of the year. But maybe A&M just keeps winning with smoke and mirrors. I don't know.
We shall see, Matt Green. Max Johnson, also undefeated as a starter since taking over. Your guy, Max Johnson. We'll get to it. There's another thing, too. So, Arkansas, I forgot who had this. Arkansas outgained A&M in total yardage, 415-343. But they only scored once on their final 8 possessions after getting out to a 14-0 lead. That's just how you lose. Like you said, where you don't. It's one of those games you walk away and you're like, I don't understand how Arkansas didn't just win this game. You did not come away going, A&M's figured some stuff out. They're really cooking. That A&M is who they are. I mean, you saw the meme with Jimbo Fisher with like all the different binders and like folders he was carrying. Like, what are we doing? Did you see that picture of like all the stuff that he's holding? Like, what is this? It's just not gonna happen. Like, the offensive explosion is not happening. Like that, we can move on. Like, that's not happening at least this year. If they win, they deserve credit for being like, we're not gonna be the Haynes King business anymore. We're not gonna be in the let's see what happens when we throw this high ceiling guy out there and try and do stuff. No, we're going to do Max Johnson, who's just going to do just enough. He's not going to kill us, and we're just going to go a solid 9-3 and 10-2 and then figure it out in the offseason. But A&M's just not a contender. They're fine. The defense is elite. The defense deserves a lot of credit for doing what they're doing week over week. But, I mean, they're just – it's not real. A&M is not, and if you're an Arkansas fan, you're just sick over that kind of loss, because I think if you watch that game and you replay it over and over again, Arkansas wins that game more often than not. And I came away still thinking Arkansas is a much better team than A&M.
Yeah, and I've never seen a kicker hit the ball off the top of the upright. I've never seen it.
Folks, stop leaving the game. College coaches especially, stop leaving the game to your college kickers. Like, just stop. Like, we gotta stop doing it. Like, this kind of stuff is just par for the course.
Arkansas, they felt like a soccer team that like had dominated possession, but like wasn't dominating the scoreline. Just allowed the team to stay in it and found a way to lose.
Matt Green, we also have this to touch on here. We have the Ohio State Buckeyes in a blackout versus Wisconsin. This was never close. I watched this whole one live, getting back from the UT game. Ohio State, man, they did not have Jackson Smith and Jigba in this one, and you never would have realized it. Marvin Harrison Jr. is a stud. They have this tight end who they made sure to mention loves farming and will be a farmer after he is no longer a tight end. He had 2 TDs, I think, total in this one, but CJ Stroud was just incredible. They were able to run the ball. Your guy, Travion Henderson. They just did whatever they wanted. Like, Ohio State put up 539 total yards of offense. They averaged .319 expected points per play, which is just bonkers. I mean, they figured some stuff out. Like, this Ohio State team can murder you without Jackson Smith and Jigba. But also, the defense is legit. Like, Jim Knowles has really, really turned this defense around. And Graham Mertz and this Wisconsin offense is just, it ain't it. There's a reason that when we were doing our preview, I locked this one up of like, Ohio State just owns the series, and Wisconsin has to get in a track meet at some point if they want to win this game, and the offense has to be better, and it's just not. Graham Mertz is not that guy, and this offense is just a bad matchup for what Ohio State does year over year. Just a horrible matchup between these two.
Without a doubt. I think this is the team we were expecting to see against Notre Dame. That just offense is just basically unstoppable. All the offense was garbage time for Wisconsin. They had 296 yards in this game. About 150 of it came on the final 2 drives in the fourth quarter. Like, this is, like you said, this is the Ohio State team we were expecting to see. And I think this is, especially after Notre Dame had struggled, you were kind of wondering, like, so they barely beat this team. Like, this is the number 3 team in the country. So I think this is what everyone wanted to see from Ohio State, to think they're a legitimate, like, in that conversation for who can win the national championship this year. But yeah, I thought this is what we thought we were going to see with Ohio State. But what are your thoughts on the black uniforms for Ohio State?
They look good. I just don't like it for Ohio State. Does that make sense? Like, if it was another program, I'd be like, those are clean. I just don't like them for Ohio State.
I want you to know that you and Tori and myself all had the exact same responses. Because when I ask Tori things, sometimes I'm like, with how much I've just talked sports into her head, and she just absorbs it like a sponge. She just jokes. She's like, I'm just telling you your sports opinion back to you. So sometimes I don't know. I'm like, what do you think about these uniforms? Like, they look good, but it's just not Ohio State. And those are my exact thoughts. Like, yeah, they look cool, like the black helmets with the red Buckeyes on them. Yeah, they look cool, but it's just Ohio State, just their tradition. They have some of the silver helmets. They're some of the best looking helmets in all of college football. So yeah, I don't like seeing Ohio State change it up so much, but they did look cool.
Yeah, it's like the Notre Dame, that green. I don't hate the green with Notre Dame, but it's like your uniforms are perfect. Like, what are we doing? Like, it's.
I do hate the green. I can't.
Do you?
Like this new green they're rocking. Like, I loved it back in like the Darius Walker, Brady Quinn era.
Yeah.
Like,
isn't that what they wore for the USC
just
game?
Dark green, but lots of times
the Bush Push. Weren't they wearing green in the Bush Push?
Yes, like that. Yeah. Those greens are perfect, but these like new like bright green with the navy numbers and gold is just like, this isn't Notre Dame. You guys are no jerseys on the back of your helmet, or no names on the back of your jerseys, no logo on your helmet. Like, These are 1920s uniforms. You keep it that way, all right? We don't want you to ever change.
That's fair. Matt Green. Do we have? Yes, we have two more here. Kansas State and Oklahoma. Okay. So Kansas State is now 3-1 with Chris Kleiman versus the Sooners, which is just bonkers. The Sooners defense, again, Brent Venables, who has just been great to this point, and obviously just an all-time great defensive mind, could not stop Adrian Martinez and this Wildcat offense where they average .281 expected points per play, which, this coming from PFF, the most allowed by a Brent Venables coach defense in a regular season game since 2018. Adrian Martinez has coming out party. Just unbelievable that this keeps happening to the Sooners. But man, what else is there to say other than like there's Chris Kleiman, he's the OU killer. Like I don't understand it. It just happens year over year.
Well, first thing I want to say is how do you sleep at night, sir? Just shame on you, sir. Just publicly jumping off the Kansas State bandwagon about 3 or 4 days ago. And now they followed up with beating Oklahoma in Norman. Like, how do you sleep at night, sir?
I knew you were going to bring this up, and it was something I thought about as I was watching this unfold, where I was like, of course they're doing this. After I quit, Adrian Martinez had been awful to this point. I will say, two things can be true. They can win this game and have this devil magic against Oklahoma, and I'm still thinking who they were the first 3 weeks is probably closer to who they are than what they were in this Oklahoma game. So I'm not going to jump back in on the Kansas State with Adrian Martinez time. Like I'm not doing it. I have to stick to my guns.
Not a bandwagon guy. You jumped off and you're off for good.
I'm off for good. Like 21 carries, 148 yards, 4 TDs for Adrian Martinez on the ground in this one. Like, hey, great
that's
all-time
the story. That's the story of my Falcons fandom. I'm not a bandwagon guy. So when Byron Leftwich and Chris Redmond, Joey Harrington were running I jumped off the bandwagon. I was never back on. I jumped off for good. But back to Kansas State, like I feel like I had no real like logical reason to be like Kansas State just gotta have some voodoo over Oklahoma, so I'll pick them. Like it was like that's a dumb reason to pick a game. And then that's exactly what it played out. Kansas State just kind of has Oklahoma's number. I don't know what it is.
For sure. Last one, USC should have lost over the weekend to Oregon State on the road against the fighting Chance Nolans and Jonathan Smith up there in Corvallis. A valiant effort by Oregon State, who is winning for the most of this game. Caleb Williams has an awful one here. The Beavers led 7-3 going into the fourth, and they lose thanks to a late connection from Williams to Addison. My thing is, like, it's going to happen. This USC team is not a playoff team. They're going down to somebody in the next couple weeks. I think they have Utah soon. It's just they're surviving right now, and I don't see it. Oregon State though, they're not going anywhere. Oregon State showed a lot. Great performance from them in this one. What did you make of USC going to Corvallis and stealing one late?
This is another one that I felt like USC, if they're going to, if this is a new era, like you have to get back to, dominating these games because this is a dangerous spot. Like people kind of talked about, like Oregon State could be a tricky team for them, but like to see them score 17 points, they need 14 points, like 7-3 going into the fourth quarter. I think that's got to worry you a lot. Like, I mean, their defense obviously had a bunch of interceptions, but how much do we credit the defense? How much do we blame the offense for those interceptions? The last 5 drives of the game for Oregon State: interception, missed field goal, interception, touchdown, interception, 3 picks in your final 5 drives. It's gonna be hard to win a football game that way. Like, if you would have told Oregon State you're gonna hold Caleb Williams to under 200 yards passing and USC to 17 points, I think you take that any day of the week. So the fact that the offense could only muster up 14 points is definitely got to be disappointing. This has to feel like this was your opportunity to upset the Trojans.
Yeah, but look, Jonathan Smith doing a good job. They really had UST on the ropes. They shouldn't have won this game. They obviously weren't favored in this one. And look, it took some last-minute heroics by USC to steal it. I think Oregon State's still in good shape for a good rest of the season. I don't think they're out of the Pac-12 title picture. Like, the Pac-12 North is still pretty open, and we'll see what happens. I mean, Oregon with a loss. We'll see with
they're taking just the best records, right? Like, even though they still have the divisions, the Pac-12 it could be a South versus South matchup. I think probably Oregon, Utah, USC probably standing out as the contenders at this point.
We'll end on this, Matt Green. Some other games. West Virginia on Thursday night blows out Virginia Tech on the road. Your JT Daniels group wins over there. Boise gets upset on the road at UTEP, which led to the Dirk Cutter being elevated to OC move. We had Kentucky struggle to get through Northern Illinois at home, 31-23.
Like, what do we make of Kentucky? Like, they just seem to do this every week. Like, they're in it. They're playing, like, to their competition every single week, it feels like.
Middle Tennessee blows out Miami on the road. Miami falls to 2-2. Jake Garcia, friend of what was it? Not 2 days. What was the show that they just did with Rush Press for the 2020 Valdosta Wildcats that he was on where he transferred?
Oh, yeah. I can't remember.
It's a great show. Watched it multiple times. Fell asleep to it. It's a great show. Missed it every day. I forgot. Hometown Heroes, I think is what it's called on Netflix. But yeah, so maybe he is the guy going forward. It's also just amazing how everything changes. Spencer Rattler, Will Levis, Anthony Richardson, Tyler Van Dyke, all first-round quarterbacks going there. It's like, I don't think that life comes at you fast, man, and especially in this era of college football. There was one other thing I wanted to mention about Oklahoma State. So Tyler Drilling, I hope I'm pronouncing that last name right on Twitter, had this tweet that I thought was really fascinating. He said, quote, Oklahoma home losses the last 20 years. You ready for this, Matt Green? 20 years, Oklahoma home games. They have only lost to one team more than once at home in the 20-year span. It was Kansas State, obviously. They lost to them 4 times at home in the last 20 years.
Wow.
They have lost to TCU once, Ohio State once, Notre Dame once, Iowa State once, Oklahoma State once, and Texas Tech once. That's it. That is all of their home losses over 20 years. Kansas State has 4 of them.
There's also a Big 12 championship beatdown one year, and Oklahoma was the number 1 team in the country back in 03, I want to say, 03 or 04. Yeah, so 03 definitely. Yeah,
just wild.
Kansas State, who knows? They're not afraid of the Sooners.
No. Auburn wins a nasty one. I mean, both coaches getting fired maybe this offseason, both gone. Not working for Eli Drinkwitz. An absolute the fumble at the goal line in overtime by Mizzou.
I don't know what's worse, is the fumble on the goal line or missing a 26-yard field goal right down the middle at the end of regulation. Like, so many opportunities for Missouri to win this game. Auburn I have no idea who the quarterback is going to be. I think they're
on
LSU.
4th string now.
Are they playing LSU next week? Yeah, I have no idea who the quarterback's going to be for that one. Auburn doesn't look great. And you saw the Bruce Feldman story on Saturday. Said if they lose, like, he had reports that if they lost the game, that Harsin was going to be fired, like, before the game. Like, how does a scoop like that get out? Like, it's just crazy to me. Like, hey, he loses today. If he loses today, he's out. Like, that's just going to be Brian Harsin's reality for the next month or so.
He's out. Like, Brian Harsin is not keeping this job. Like, it's over.
If you're waiting on the losses,
yes,
they're going to come. So just keep waiting. They're on the schedule.
Speaking of losses, when does Pat Fitzgerald's seat get hot? They lose at home to Miami of Ohio 17-14. They are 0-3 at home, 1-3 as a whole.
Why do you hate Pat Fitzgerald? I think that's the real question.
Why? Just evolve. What more do we have to see? This offense is, what more? 24-42 for Ryan Helinski, the former Gamecock quarterback. Just evolve on offense, man. Iowa bounces back. They're gonna still go like 9-3, 10-2 with this horrific offense, and I hate it. There was one other one that I wanted to hit on. Oh, Minnesota beats the crap out of Michigan State on the road. So Tanner Morgan goes 23 of 26, 268, 3 TDs against Mel Tucker in this group. Muhammad Ibrahim and Tanner Morgan are a dynamic duo that I think the rest of America needs to get familiar with, because Minnesota's winning the Big Ten West, and we're getting Minnesota Ohio State, which I believe was my preseason prediction, Matt Green. I think I went Minnesota Ohio State on our preview show for the Big Ten.
I think that's right. I thought about doing it because they do have a favorable schedule from the West, but I think you pulled the trigger.
Well, Tanner Morgan, in his 17th college career, had a 92.9 grade against Michigan State per PFF. He is currently the highest graded quarterback in the country at 95.3.
And I mean, that's one of the things we were asking about going into the year. Like, are we going to get 2021 Tanner Morgan, or are we going to get the 2020 version of Tanner Morgan?
Well, we're getting 2020.
Or actually, it wasn't
It'd be
2020. It was 2019.
It was the year they played Auburn in that bowl game. Yeah.
Yeah, because they went 10-3.
Tyler Johnson and company. Yeah.
Yeah, so
Rashad Bateman.
Exactly. So we'll see. Minnesota's looking dangerous so far. I think at Penn State, I think is really
when is that?
Only real. I think that's a couple weeks from now, like 3 weeks from now. So they got some time for that one.
The Kirk Sriracha Bowl.
Exactly. So yeah, but they avoid basically all the other good teams from the Big Ten East. So we'll see. They could definitely be a dangerous one.
Well, that's all I've got, Matt Green, on our recap show. Anything else you'd like to throw out there as we wrap up here on a Sunday night?
That's all I got, man. Happy for you. Happy you get to experience a big time win up there in Knoxville. Beat the Gators, and we'll see what happens next week. That was a big week for you. You know, you need to get a week off after that one. So
it took a lot out of me.
Then get back to it. I hope your foot is doing all right from that experience.
Let me just go ahead and say, I have to wear this boot until around Halloween. I will not be going to another game until I get this boot off. It was a lot. I am on IL, so it sucks with the timing with the games. And high school, I love going, obviously, as you know, and all the listeners know. I go to a lot of high school games and cover those. It's not fun. It hurts, and it's just it's a pain in the ass. And unfortunately, I really would rather just get through this, suffer through it, and get the boot off and be back later this fall. But yeah, will not be, unfortunately, in any more Tennessee games with this thing on, because let me tell you, I was in agony walking around with this thing on a broken foot with my boots. So that is it.
Hey, you say that now. 3 weeks from now,
nope, not doing it. On the record,
Crimson Tide's going to be running in.
On the record, no, won't do it. It was I had to experience the foot and kneeling, and it's over. Never doing it again. Can't do it. It's too much. For that guy down there in Tequila, Georgia, Matt Green, follow him on Twitter at Matt_W_Green. For myself, up here in Knoxville, Tennessee, where the Tennessee Volunteers have won their last 7 games, I believe, against the Florida Gators across the 3 major sports in baseball, basketball, and football. That is all we have got here on this edition of The Full Ride on the Chase Thomas Podcast here in the Blue Wire Pod Network. Matt Green, I will talk to you preview show in a couple days. All right, hello, and welcome back to the Sports Reporters, who have indeed reassembled 2/3 of the Sports Reporters here on the Chase Thomas Podcast on the Blue Wire Pod Network. Bob Silverman is here. No Andrew Hammond, as he went back home this weekend. He was all revved up for Kansas Duke. He couldn't miss it for the world. 2-3-0 mighty football programs. Andrew had to come back, and then his own alma mater, Kansas State, on the road in Norman against Oklahoma. Chris Kleiman, 2-1 against Oklahoma to this point. I'm saying a lot of words that Bob Silverman up there in New York City is not familiar with. Bob, good morning, sir. How are you?
Sounds. I'm just letting the wall of noise pass over me. A Gang of Four song. All you Gang of Four fans.
Who is Gang of Four?
Yeah, moving on. It's just like you talking about Kansas State. You can Google it when we're done.
Gang of Four. All right, I like it. I'll look it up after.
Kids, Google Gang of Four and the Wall of Noise theory of music. Just
Theory of music.
some fun reading for later.
Okay, I like it. Bob, good morning, sir. How are you? How's everything? It's been a couple weeks away. I'm a married man.
I'm a little tuckered. You're married.
Yeah, a lot's happened in the last 2 weeks. I broke my foot.
Oh no! What happened? Like Keith Hernandez?
No, I think he broke his shoulder. Right? Didn't he?
Yeah, he tore. I think he got a torn rotator cuff. I think he got a real baseball injury doing some very non-baseball things.
Well, it reminds me of the bit. Have you watched Patton Oswalt's new special?
No.
Okay, it's good. And he broke his foot earlier this year, and he talks about it and like all the different people who reached out to him, and he's like, he just broke it just being older and kind of basically tripping, not even really tripping or falling off a sidewalk. He just kind of did that and then broke it in 2 places. And Glenn Howerton's like, oh man, I'm so sorry. And he broke his collarbone, and they're like close in age. And he's like, how did you do it? And Glenn's like, I was doing a flip, snowboarding, and landed on and Patton's like, no, stop. And then Tony Hawk reached out and was like, I broke my fibula or something. And he's like, how did you do it? And like doing some other crazy skateboarding trick. Some
extreme sports thing.
And Patton's like, I just stepped weird getting off the sidewalk.
It happens. You get older and you get some very, very lame old person injuries. They happen.
Bob.
I have not. The weirdest. I've broken a foot. I've broken a foot playing basketball.
Right or left?
Left.
Same. That's what
I've
I just
broken a
did.
foot. I've broken another foot rehearsing a play. I just was jumping from like a chair, like a sofa, to the floor and landed wrong, and it went. I have had a scratched cornea when I took like a street hockey puck to the eye.
Oh.
Because I would play goalie without a mask, like a
What?
crazy person. Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Goalie without a mask?
Yeah.
Bob, that is certainly a choice. That is a choice from Bob Silverman.
I had forgotten to wear my contact lenses to go play street hockey one time, and the choice was mask or C, and I chose C. That, in retrospect, that was the wrong choice.
Goodness gracious! When you broke your foot, did you go to the doctor, get it X-rayed, and
Yeah.
Did you go in a cast boot? What'd you do?
What the basketball one? It was a hairline fracture, but like I did have to get it put in a cast. The other one, it was just small enough that it could be. It wasn't like a full fracture. It was just a small break, and
so you just had to put it in a boot.
We just had to. They rubbed some spit and tobacco on it and sent me on my way.
How long were you in a cast?
Oh God, like a couple of months for the broken foot. Like when I broke it. The basketball one was like bad.
So like when you broke that one, like you couldn't walk on it, put any pressure on it.
No, that was full. Like you got crutches, you got a plaster cast, the whole 9 yards.
Yeah. What was the rehab like? How long were you up on the shelf?
Rehab. I don't know. It took a couple of months. Then they took it off. People signed it. I was a kid.
Okay, so you were a kid. This was not as an adult.
No, this was 17. There was no rehab.
That is something you also find out when you get older and you like have injuries and stuff like that, where the doctors will just tell you that like it's the now canceled comedian's bit, which is still true, where he was like, it's just shitty now. That's just what they tell you when you get older with your injuries. It's like, well, I mean, if you were an athlete and you needed this for your livelihood,
you need to return to peak capacity. Sure, there would be
we'll do immediate surgery,
therapists, and yes.
But if you're not, you're just a podcaster. They're like, just boot it. And
what happened to you? How did you break it?
Well, I mean, I run, so like I'm a runner, and I've never Bob. I've never broken a bone, and I broke the bone in my foot the Wednesday before my wedding. So yes, so I had to bite the bullet and basically just put an ace bandage around it and ice it and keep my foot up Wednesday and Thursday because I couldn't. Like I'm not putting on I'm
Did they give you any medication? Did you get the good drugs?
I don't like it. I don't like doing that. That freaks me out. Like, Bob, I am awful about it. My wife is just like, what are you? Do you just want pain? And I'm like, I just don't trust it because I feel like I'm going to like it too much and then it's going to be hard to...
No, just get some... You'll be a little... It'll make you a little loopy. Get some Advil with codeine. You'll be fine.
But I had to kind of
codeine.
go through it because I'm like, if I put a boot on, my suit would not fit over something like that.
No,
that ruins the photos. That ruins everything.
Oh, they can photograph you from the knee up. You'd be fine.
You say that, Bob. Look. So basically, I didn't put anything on it for that Saturday night to get through it, and then booted up on Sunday and have been on crutches since. But Tennessee today, go back and forth. So I don't know. Like, I've gotten differing opinions where it's like, as long as you keep your foot in a 90-degree angle while you're healing in a boot, it doesn't really matter if you put weight, because like the whole point of the boot is to like keep like it.
Well, I'll Google it later, and I'll be Dr. Google.
I had the same injury that Michael Jordan had in 1985.
Well, okay, but he's Michael Jordan,
and I'm Chase Thomas, the Michael Jordan of podcasting. People forget.
Yeah. But just saying.
But anyway, I've learned all kinds of things, and it's amazing too when people will reach out and they'll tell you their stories. When you're injured, strangers will tell you all about when they did something.
Yeah, the wacky injuries, the wacky things they did to hurt themselves.
Yes.
Just like Keith Hernandez, who stumbled walking off a curb and wanted to save both his glasses and his cell phone, and so he didn't properly tuck and roll, and therefore is out for the rest of the season. I'm very upset because the
Why can't he call the game from like his hotel or whatever, like his house? Why can't he just call in?
I don't think they can set up a Skype call or a
Can
Zoom
they not?
call.
They were doing that with COVID for a whole year.
No, they were in the same room.
Were they?
They were always in the same room. I mean, it was a studio somewhere. They weren't traveling, but they were in the same room together. They can't.
But I feel like a lot of broadcast teams did that though, where they were calling games from their house.
You want to?
He's Keith Hernandez, Bob. You got to make it work. You got to get him in there somehow.
The Mets booth, the Gary, Keith, and Ron booth, the best booth in all of sports. Which the interesting thing, and this is something they said on the air the other day. The reason they're so good, or the reason dorks like me like them so much, is because they're not actually calling a sporting event. They are parodying what a broadcast should be. They are riffing on the concept. They're doing a derivation of a sports broadcast, is how they put it, or how I'm putting it. I think they said they're parodying a sports broadcast. They really are. They just talk about whatever comes into their head, and Cohen will just sort of make sure that you know what actually happened in the game. But really, it's just a blank canvas for them to talk about things that interest them. So that's what makes it so good.
Can we put you in the booth? Can you finish up the season in the booth?
I'm available.
I was going to say, this fits you. This is exactly the kind of booth you need to be in.
It is harder than you think. Calling a sporting event is not easy.
Have you done it?
Let alone doing the advanced kind of jazz stylings that you get from those guys. It takes time, and it takes years of practice to be able to know when to shut up and let the other person speak and pass the baton and the whole thing. And also, I don't know nearly as much about baseball as those guys. I would bring up Gang of Four and Wall of Sound, which they do often. There was an extended riff where the three of them were talking about the cool downtown New York City clubs in the early to mid 80s, and things like the Mud Club came up during the
Mud Club.
Again, kids, Google later. MUDD.
Google the Mud Club, Gang of Four.
MUDD Club.
Like Puddle of Mud. The great
like
band
that.
of... Yeah.
Yeah. The Mud Club was a frequent hotspot where places... Like Jean-Michel Basquiat went to the Mud Club, and when Vincent Gallo was friends with him, he went to the Mud Club. That's what we're talking about when we talk about the Mud Club.
Okay.
So... Yeah, I think I could keep up when it comes to the outre references. That would be okay with me, but they do know a lot more about actually what it means to play professional baseball than I do, and that's required also. It's not just some hipster dingus talking about things that the people listening into the broadcast may not catch the references of. I could get all the Seinfeld references that Gary Cohen drops. That would be that I'd keep up with. but
Interesting.
otherwise, yeah. What makes it cool is that they are not actually really calling a baseball game, or they have a lot more latitude to stray from that format than anyone else does. As to why Keith can't get, there's 2 weeks left in the season. If Hernandez needs to get the surgery soon, it's not like he's an athlete. They're going to rush him in to see Frank Jobe or
MD Anderson
or Neil Elatrosh or whatever, one of those guys. He's in New York. They'll wait for his guy, prep for the surgery, wait for the surgery, time to rehab from the surgery. I don't think you can do it in the last, literally.
I just love the way that he saved
season.
his phone and
he saved his phone. That's very
shoulder.
Important.
Yeah.
Granted, I assume he's got good health care, so I have a feeling the phone and the glasses would have ended up costing him more, but you don't know. I don't know the details of his plan. He may have lost some money on this deal.
He may have. Bob.
What?
I don't know how to talk about this, but we kind of have to talk about this.
Go for it. Let's do it.
The Celtics suspending Ime Udoka for the season.
Let's talk about it. Let's not talk about the actual story because nobody knows really what happened yet.
Yes.
So I don't think we need to talk about that. I do think we could talk about it as a media story, though.
Yes.
That we know about. So for all of you who may have missed out on the fun, when was it?
Yesterday, right?
It was Thursday.
Was it Thursday?
Night?
Yeah.
It was late Thursday night.
That it broke, but the stuff came out.
That it broke. And it broke in first, of course, because it's a basketball story, so Woj gets there first. Mm-hmm. And he posts, I'm not going to pull it up, he posts a very cryptic tweet.
With a weird graphic with his...
Look, it is a... To all employees in Bristol, if you are the person whose job it is to make the graphics for Woj, I would like to speak with you for a story. Because I want to know what that process is like.
Yeah.
That aside.
That's right up your alley.
Yeah, I want to know what it takes to quickly throw together the artwork for the breaking Woj story and how you do that under the time constraints that are provided. But that aside, so he posted in a very strange way. He says that there is he's facing a suspension, I believe, but he made as a result of a relationship which he made sure to stress was consensual. I don't know how he locked down that detail. Shams also said consensual in his tweet.
But we've also not got confirmation from the Celtics or anything
No one had said anything. And it took about a day, and then the Celtics held a presser. It might have been Wednesday. It might have taken 72 hours to get all this out. But the thing is, and then of course we'll get to Matt Barnes going into his car and making a post, an Instagram story, I believe, about it more later. But we have no idea why Ime was suspended for a year, except clearly if he was suspended for a year, it was bad. Whether it involved consensual or non-consensual acts, as those scoopmeisters said when the story broke, we don't know. The Celtics provided very little details in their press conference yesterday. But what it didn't stop was 24 hours of every single person, every single basketball knower, amateur and pro alike, speculating wildly all day about how this person would be and harassing women in the Celtics organization, claiming they were the person having the relationship of which we know nothing with Udoka. And of course, jokes about Nia Long getting cheated on. It was in fact it was exactly how a story like this gets handled in 2022. And it was awful because we just don't know anything.
And you also saw that coming immediately. Yeah. Where they were surprised. Did you not think the Twitter people were going to immediately investigate and just post all day about...
Investigate. We need to put that in quotes.
Okay,
They're
I
going
should
to investigate.
say... Yeah. We're not going to just put every female staffer they found on blast. Did you really not think that that's how it was going to go?
Awful. Well, here is the problem. And it's because if you're reporting out a story that is not... And I think, Matt Moore for the Action Network, I think put this well in a tweet yesterday, which is this is not a transactional story. This is a workplace, this is a labor story. And again, I'm paraphrasing Matt's tweet. I apologize, Matt, if I'm getting it wrong, but it is a labor story. It is possibly a sexual harassment story, and it is not a transactional story. So when you are dealing with a story that is about labor and potentially sexual harassment and workplace conduct, there are different rules. And you can't just put the couple of things you've got in a tweet. Number one. I'm sorry, you don't have the story then. And until you've got it, you cannot throw it to the wolves of NBA fandom and say, you guys have fun with this, tear it up, I'll give you more when I've got it. You just can't. It's not... I don't know if you want to call it unethical. Let's just say it's really not best practices.
Right.
And like, unfortunately, especially in the NBA, but really in all sports, the news breaking architecture that's been established means that someone has to get the tweet up first, or else you didn't break the story. And that's not how you can handle this. Look, the same thing happened with, I think it was Dalvin Cook and Schefter about a year and a half ago, when Schefter was threw in some extra comments in a tweet about, I forget what Cook was charged with. It was, again, allegations of a similar nature, and he sort of threw in some comments about how Cook is well respected and a really good guy. And you're like, whoa. One, report the story. Two, again, a 280 character blast is not the place to get into that. If you want to talk about reporting about how this may seem out of character for this person, there is a way to do that, and it's not on social media. And so it was just all handled as awfully as possible. I mean, and that's unfortunately the news breaking apparatus. Like, there are reporters who are versed in covering this kind of material, and I would say, and I think they would agree, that neither Shams nor Woj are two of them. And so they handled it the way they handled everything else, and I think it did a disservice to a lot of different people.
I agree. And you saw it coming when the Matt Barnes, we'll get to in a second, but I think there's still a lot more to the story that we have no idea. And also, it's really none of our business. Like, it's the Celtics. Like, none of this should have come out. Like, all it should have been is, like, there is a HR issue. There is something that happened in the workplace between Ime and that's it. And
there may
that
be
should have been
all
the end
kinds
of the story.
of legal reasons why the Celtics can't say more right now.
Yes. That's all you had to say. And then you're like, all right, well, you can let fans and analysts wonder.
The Celtics were going to announce this at us clearly soon. Whether, let's just say that someone thought it was in their best interest to get the word consensual out before the press conference. Yeah. I'm not going to speculate about what party that might be. There are a lot of interested parties who might have wanted to do that. But to me, that was bad. And it only ended up, and I don't know what amount of spin that might have helped anyone involved to set the parameters of the conversation without having the full story, but someone thought that was the case. That, to me, was very bad. Now, it may have been an entirely consensual relationship that still was a violation of the power dynamics inherent in any workplace the size of the Celtics, or almost any workplace altogether where there is a hierarchy in place. It may have been consensual. Again, we don't know.
Right.
Someone's going to report this story out.
Yep.
It's not going to remain. These questions.
Too much is already out there now.
Yeah, it's out there. I would have to assume that that a lot of different reporters, not just sports reporters, are now on this. I have no information.
Seems like once it gets out too, they just got the 1 year indefinite suspension for him. I don't think Udoka ever coaches his team again.
No,
I think it's gone.
I think he'll coach somewhere else.
I don't think he's coaching with the Celtics ever.
I don't think you can. I don't think you can say, okay, go away for a year, but then come back. That to me is very strange. And of course, it got the Stephen A. treatment also, which never helps. Even when there are, a fairly complete set of facts available. There are a lot of different things that can be true in a story like this. And again, until we have actual concrete information, all of it is speculating. There can be, there can have been power dynamics inherent in a workplace relationship that are disadvantageous to one party. There can have been a certain amount of sexism at play. There can have been no small amount of racism at play. We don't know because we don't know what happened yet. And for anyone to make any guesses about that, or like the people are saying, there were a bunch of people, not to give them more oxygen, but they were getting mad at like, oh, well, why is a black man being put on blast for this? Look at all these. And then it's like, well, there are a lot of like inappropriate relationships, let's use that broad a descriptor, have ended the career of a lot of coaches of all different genders. So but the fact that this one came out may have something to do with the racial dynamic. We don't know. Everybody shut up about it, though. Yeah. And go do the reporting. Or let people go do the reporting. And no one's going to... me saying everybody shut up about it is, it's as useful as Kevin Bacon in Animal House being, all is well, remain calm as people charge hither and thither. I know that movie came out,
I love your references today, Bob. Everything
25 years before you were born.
Yeah, I know. Every reference from Bob today. I like it. I also will say what's weird, and look, I'm not on social media all that much anymore. Most of my stuff is just it's just bad for the brain. It's bad for the brain.
Yeah, I need to continually marinate in toxic slop, or else I'll go into withdrawal. But go ahead.
And something that I saw, and something that I've seen the last couple days, the fallout from this is there are a lot of people in caps lock, like, focus on Brett Favre, focus on Brett Favre, focus on Brett Favre. And I don't really, there's this idea, they're just making this straw man argument of, why aren't they talking about Brett Favre? I'm like, a lot of people are talking about Brett Favre.
It's called whataboutism. It's whataboutism. It's like, well, okay, I believe
we can think, human beings can think about two different stories and
two different awful things.
Yes.
There's a story last night about that worldwide we're going to see by 2050 an average of 12 inches of sea level rise.
Oh, we've already seen that. Yeah, the wife and I are ready for Asheville. Yeah, we've
guess what? It's going to hit the poorer parts of the U.S. more. Ha 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 ha. So you can keep that and be mad at Brett Favre for literally sending text saying, "Don't tell anybody about how I'm stealing
notes
from poor people."
Are you taking notes on a criminal conspiracy? What? That's the thing. Is I was like, who's not mad about that? Who's not talking about it? And who can? What are we talking about? Why can you not go? This is bad. This is bad. This is bad.
It's not the one. There is a whole buffet of awful things one could be mad about at any given moment, and it's okay to sort of laser focus in on the new one for a hot minute.
And also, can you see the difference in where our society just works in general, where the mind is going to jump to the Ime Udoka scandal with Nia Long involved, who is a big time Hollywood, that is obviously going to draw more attention. Just look at what was it? What is the New York? Is he a senator? Who was that? Who quote tweeted and was just
a corrupt New York politician? You got to narrow it down.
Jamal. What is his name?
Jamal Bowman.
Yes, who tweeted about the incident in Nia Long. Did you see what he tweeted?
No, I don't want to know.
Okay, well, he was in support of Nia Long and the whole...
Oh, good.
Yes, but it was one of those things where it was... You have to look at the tweet and the responses. It's very funny.
I'm sure it's...
but the point being is that's going to be more... That's going to get more play because of the nature and what it involves for what society eats up versus welfare fraud. That's just not...
Yes. Brett, not to say one is worse than the other because, again, for the umpteenth time, we just don't know what happened here.
Right.
But yes, one is scandalous and easy to grasp onto, and it's easier to get off a how tweet. Dare he tweet on the sexy woman post than it is to parse the details of
what's going on in Jackson and what's going on in Mississippi City.
A years-long campaign so that Brett Favre could be a volleyball girl dad and get a free stadium with the help of the freaking governor. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Right? I feel like we're taking crazy pills with some of this stuff, and this is why I don't understand it. It's silly. People I don't know.
Look, with regards to like the Suns story, a lot of people had that for a long time. Like, or a lot of people had heard whispers about that for a long time. I looked into it back in 2018, and I had one source who couldn't talk on the record, and that source was trying to put me in touch with other people who could, but they couldn't. But I'd heard about Sarver's like conduct.
Like, how long do you think Baxter's had this?
As someone who's, internet friendly with Baxter, no comment. But
Yeah.
I'll just tell you that a lot of people who have been the whispers were out there. In a story of this scope, like, reporters hear things and can't report them until they've got them. Baxter spoke to 70 people in the Suns organization.
Yeah.
That takes time. Do the math. How long does it... Think about how long it would take you to make 70 calls to people you've never met.
Well, I do that all.
I mean,
how many calls do I make for the pod a
the
week?
One of the big story that I wrote in 2021 about the bad YouTube man.
Yeah.
The reporting total, getting people on the phone, just the getting people on the phone part of it, not the watching hours of YouTube video, just that part. It took, from when I started, I would say 7 months because like I spoke to over 40 people. Not all of them were like quoted in the story. Not all of them were used on background. Some of them.
But that's how it works. Like some make it, some don't.
I had to get 40 people to talk to you who don't know you. It takes me going to one person. I'm saying, do you know anyone who can talk about this? They give you a list of 3 or 4 names, or 1 or 2. You call or you email those people. Some of them answer, some of them don't. When the ones you speak to, they point you to 3 or 4 more people, and so on and so on and so on. That's how you build up a network of people to talk to you about this. But that took one of the last people quoted in the story I spoke to, I think 5 days before it ran on the record. But that was 5 days before the story ran. That's how long it took to talk to all those people. Now, someone with working for ESPN, that'll open up a few more doors, but it takes time to get that many people in calls and emails. So it's a long process. I'll just leave it at that. But
can I read Sarver's statement, by the way?
Sure, go
His
for it.
parting statement before it came out that he was going to sell. Like,
it's bad.
It's so bad. Quote,
he's being canceled, man. Look, if
my goodness.
He's
being canceled by getting $1.6 billion.
So Robert's 2.6. He's going to have to sell.
Well, no,
the
he's
team.
not. I think he only has a 1.6 stake, right?
He's got a 30% stake, so yeah, he's not going to actually get the full 2.6
right.
of the team. But I think he is, according to NBA bylaws, he as the majority owner can sell the entire team and the other share, and then make an offer to the rest of the minority shareholders. He only has a plurality. He doesn't even have a majority, but that's what the fine print on the paperwork says, so he can sell it out.
And that seems like where we're going anyways. Like every franchise is doing that now.
They're all gonna. I mean, there is word that the Knicks are gonna sell. I'm very happy about that. We've discussed this, I believe.
I mean, that's the biggest sell outside of the Cowboys, right?
7 to 8 billion. The Cowboys will get more, but the Knicks are the most valuable NBA franchise pretty much every year since 2008. The Lakers have passed them a couple of years, but they're pretty much them. Look, Elon, if he doesn't buy Twitter, he could buy the Knicks. So there you go.
You don't want that, Bob.
I am embracing chaos.
He said, quote, let me read just a few lines from this.
Just go for it.
It's
I'm gonna
ridiculous.
Have some nicotine while we do that. Go for it.
Words that I deeply regret now overshadow nearly 2 decades of building organizations that brought people together.
Words that I regret saying over 2 decades. Going on. Continue.
And strengthen the Phoenix area through the unifying power of professional men's and women's basketball. As a man of faith, I believe in atonement and the path to forgiveness. I expected...
Eric Bledsoe is what brings us together.
I expected that the commissioner's 1-year suspension would provide the time for me to focus, make amends, and remove my personal controversy from the teams that I and so many fans love. But in our current unforgiving climate, it has become...
the climate.
Oh,
it is so unforgiving. Whoa, the climate.
It has become painfully clear that this is no longer possible. That whatever good I have done, or could still do, is outweighed by the things I have said in the past.
Which he can't do unless he's the owner of a professional basketball team.
Exactly.
That is the only way for him to do good is by bringing a title to the people of Scottsdale. It's like...
He doesn't get it, man.
Well, in his defense, when you have that much money, you have never been held account to anything.
Mm-hmm.
And now he is.
He also has had time. Like this, you mentioned how much reporting goes into this. There is no way he did not know that this was all going to come out at some point. Like he's had months and years to be like, hey, there's the way I used to do things was a problem. Contrition was a possibility a long time ago.
Yeah. Like he could very easily have learned to stop putting goats into people's offices. He had time to learn not to do that.
Right.
When you have that much money, you are walled off from consequences for any of your behavior. That's what the money is for. Mm. The money is for that you don't have to care what anybody thinks. And now someone is saying, well, you got to care a little. Mm. And I have no reporting to this effect, but if we're in the land of wild speculation, I would have a feeling that one or two of the other owners, or maybe the commissioner, were like, you should probably get out while the getting's good. Mm. But again, it's interesting. People brought up made the Donald Sterling comparison, and there's a good article that Sean Hyken wrote over at his Substack, if you want to check that out, about this, which is like, Sterling was forced to sell under some very specific circumstances. Sterling was forced to sell because there were playoff games that may have been canceled by a wildcat strike, for one. Like, all of the players were saying, actually, no. The other thing is, there was a tape. Mm-hmm. And if you ask the average fan what Sarver did, even for basketball heads, they would probably have some difficulty nailing down the details. But everybody heard the tapes. Everyone heard what he said about Magic Johnson. Everybody heard him whining and sounding exactly like Master Shake and complaining about black people. So there was a tape. There was a tape. It was a story that extended, again, outside the sports world, I don't think people know about this story. Mm. But that was on Good Morning America, and that was on 2020. And, Sterling went and did an interview, which made things worse. So there were a lot of things that got Sterling to leave. But in the end, the same thing happened. Like, his wife declared him mentally incompetent, sold the team, and the owners were like, great, we'll get Steve Ballmer in. Awesome.
Yeah. And I think, didn't the ex-wife get floor seats or, part of
She got, on three floor seats and honorary championship rings, and she's got a title that's she's named Clippers Superfan for life. I kid you not. I'm not kidding.
Yeah.
I'm not kidding. And Shelley Sterling, by the way, was complicit in the years of racist housing discrimination that Donald Sterling pulled off when he was as a slumlord. She's absolutely was deeply involved in his businesses. She is not a poor, suffering spouse to a billionaire.
And I mean, look at this too. This is goes back to when people were look, Adam Silver, there are reasons to...
Adam Silver, I want to say this. Adam Silver in that press conference told the truth.
Yes.
When Howard Beck asked him, why is it that any employee of the Phoenix Suns organization who's caught doing these things would be immediately fired and probably drummed out of basketball for life? Why is Robert Sarver nearly not being held to the same standards? And Adam Silver said it's because there are different rules for you when you own the team. And in terms of the straight legalese, yeah, the NBA could get together and vote him out if they wanted to, but and again, Mark Cuban said this during when the Sterling scandal broke. They are all those same 29 other NBA owners or corporate entities. None of them want people digging into their practices either. Because I'm sure, while it probably might not be as bad as what Sarver did, you'll find some stuff. Mm. None of them want to be held to account.
We just found stuff with the Mavericks.
Yes.
Really horrible stuff. We just found that.
Really horrible stuff. Mark Cuban is still is a member of the NBA community in high regard. Mm-hmm. None of them want it. Like, none of them, like, Mark Cuban was like, I don't know if we should force this guy to still. But again, the very specific circumstances made that happen. They weren't going to pull that ripcord a second time.
Yeah. It's extremely complicated. And, like, Silver can't just say it's extremely complicated because people don't like it.
Right. And he was not lying when he said, yes, when you have that much money, the rules are different.
Yeah.
That is true. That is a true statement. But again, there were some sponsors who were making noise. Players were starting to make noise. You got some, LeBron said some things. Draymond Green said some things. The majority owner said he started still. I have a feeling if he had not announced that he was putting the team on the market, those forces would have started to.
Well, Simmons said on the podcast that Jordan was looming. And, like, that was the final one of Jordan just coming out publicly or something.
Yeah, he probably would have. Yeah, and I think they were telling Sarver, like, do you want this to be a story about how Michael Jordan or whomever is saying you should get out of the paint, or do you want to do it yourself? And he did. Adam Silver may have been cognizant of the fact that that's the way the wind was blowing when he gave the year-long suspension and said, well, we're suspending you for a year. That's the most we can do under NBA bylaws without a full vote by all the other owners to remove you from basketball. But guess what? I know what's going to happen next.
Yeah.
So, but again, I appreciate that honesty by Adam Silver. I really do.
It just made people mad, and it's like, well,
it made people mad. I'm like,
Why are you booing? He's right.
Yeah. Yeah, you should be mad.
Yeah.
But guess what? If Adam Silver had said, I, Lord God of basketball, excommunicate you for life, it wouldn't change the fact that all the other billionaires in every entertainment industry are still going to get away with everything. So maybe people, you can focus your energy on the systemic issues that got us to that place. That's a harder, that's a bigger ask. I know, but that's where it should be. I mean, look, I get the same way whenever we get to these debates about football players being suspended. And yeah, I understand why people might be mad about Deshaun Watson only getting X number of games and then move to more in arbitration. I get that. And it may seem like he got off light compared to the scope of the alleged crimes that he committed. And yeah, it should, but a football suspension is not going to change that. There are a lot bigger. We really should, like, if this makes you mad, put some time into addressing those issues. And if everyone's saying, well, I'm just one person, how can I do it? And I was like, I don't know. Talk to people. Ask. Volunteer. Donate money. Do something that is not involves yelling at your screens. Because do something. And no, one person alone can't do it. A mass of people maybe can over decades. Don't make me quote like an Issa poem, but I might do it. I'm going to quote a haiku. Oh, snail, climb Mount Fuji, but slowly. That's right. Issa, MFers.
There you go.
Google that. Mud Club. Gang of Four.
Albert Pujols hit his 700th home run last
Yay,
night.
that was nice. That was a good sports story. That was awesome.
That's like one of the few, the Judge and Pujols stories. I mean, Apple's been really bad at how they did all this. Did you see what they were advertising for with Judge on Friday night, where it was Giancarlo Stanton and another Red Sox in the advertisement, and they didn't allow Michael Kay or the Yes guys to
I missed that. I was focused on the campaign for this movie, Smile. This horror movie,
that?
Smile.
Oh, wait, I know. I've seen the previews for that. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, there is some horror movie called,
yes.
I think it's called Smile. But what they did is they hired actors and paid for them to have front row seats and just stare directly into the camera, not moving, with a really, like, toothsome and evil-looking fixed wide grin. And, like, there's one guy who was doing it, and, like, a foul ball came a few feet from his head, and the dude didn't flinch. It's impressive. But I found that awful. I resented the viral campaign that shot at the fan. They were there during the Mets game. I was watching the Mets A's game late last night, and there's this one woman seeing the guy and like.
How are you doing this? How did you do that for that long?
Just don't move your face.
That was
I'm
impressive.
a trained clown, sir.
That was good.
Yeah, she's doing that and staring directly into like the camera, and she's got front row seats, and she was clearly being paid to do this. I first saw it, and I was like, "What the heck is going? Why is that woman not moving? Is she really mad at Sean Murphy? Is she upset about the Sean Manea trade? What's going on?"
She knew a Eduardo Escobar grand slammy was coming.
Yeah. She's a big Escobar fan. Mm-hmm. She's worried about the depth in the Mets bullpen. Wondering if Tyler McGill can be converted into a reliever.
Oh man, still coming down the pike for our two teams.
Horrible fixed grin plastered on her face.
Speaking of, did you watch Barbarian yet? Have you seen that in theaters?
No.
So good. Barbarian is top notch. Top notch. We saw
Is
Pearl.
Is this a Conan reboot? Is this a reboot of Conan? No.
No, Barbarian has. I mean, you can't go wrong with Bill Skarsgård. Just always awesome. Justin Long plays a piece of shit. He does that really well.
Language chase, please.
Oh, excuse me. Sorry. A piece of blank. And he's great.
Piece du merde.
I know.
Is it set in? Is it a big swords and sandals type epic? Are we in ancient times, or are they just?
No. This is all now in Detroit, Michigan. But it's top notch. It's there's some good swerves along the way. Highly recommend. It's the best movie in theaters right now.
M. Night Shyamalan-esque plot twists for you at home?
No, but I think, if I remember correctly, I think the people behind it did this. I could be wrong, but I think it's the people behind it. But no, top-notch stuff. And look, I've always said Barbarian, basically the same thing as Albert Pujols.
I've been enjoying watching the TV show Atlanta,
Ooh.
which I didn't watch the first seasons when they first aired, but I've been watching the final season episodes, and now when I'm done with that, and I don't need to get the plot backfilled, but I will go back and watch the early ones. It is delightful.
It's a great show.
That's
great
a great
city,
show.
People say.
That I don't know about. I'm assuming it's a fictional.
Have you been to Atlanta?
No.
That's wild. You've never been to Atlanta.
No. The southern states I've been to parts of South Carolina.
Okay. Which part?
And Florida. I went to
Hilton Head?
Yeah.
Okay.
When
I could see you. Bob Silverman at a Salty Dog Cafe is something that I want to see.
I was 13. I don't know if I hit too many cafes. I've been to Miami once.
We don't consider that the South.
Why not?
Miami's not the South.
What is it?
It's its own
Is it
thing.
just like Division III Cuba? What is it?
No, it's not that. It's just its own thing. Like North Florida and South Georgia are the exact same. Like if you're talking about Southern cold, like it just doesn't fit.
Jacksonville is Florida.
Oh yeah, Jacksonville's the South.
Jacksonville's the South, but Miami is
is
Caribbean.
It's something else. I don't know what to call it, but it's not the South.
Okay.
I mean, just some people in Miami, they would say it's not the South.
I've seen some Billy Corbin documentaries, so I've got a sense of it.
Yeah, New Orleans, the South. Atlanta, the South.
I've not been to New Orleans. I've always wanted to go to New Orleans. A couple of friends of mine live there now. It's a thing to do. I'm going to go. I've not been to... I'm trying to think if there are any other southern states I have been.
Have you been to Tennessee ever?
I've been to Kentucky.
Okay. Bluegrass?
I mean, Louisville. Yeah.
Hold on. I say that one more time?
Louisville?
It's not how you say it. You know,
how do you say it?
You know how you pronounce it? It's a really weird word to pronounce.
Louisville?
No. You ready? I got to gear up for this, Bob.
All right. Take your time. Go through your preparation.
Louisville.
Okay.
No, it's Louisville. You have to say it like that, too. The way it's pronounced is Louisville.
I'm not doing that.
Louisville. Because they, combine... It's Louisville.
Okay.
And then, how do you say Atlanta? This is how you'll always know if someone's from Atlanta or not. Here we go. Try it. The city. Say it one more time.
Atlanta.
Oh. It's a little bit too, but there's Atlanta. Like Atlanta. Where we're not even pronouncing our own city's name right. It's a Boston thing. That's what we always have done, is Atlanta. Okay. But then other people from outside are like Atlanta. That is
Atlanta.
That's not a thing.
with my standard mid-American accent. Okay, those are the cities south of the Mason-Dixon line that I've been to.
Okay.
I don't know if
Louisville.
Counts as
Louisville. Louisville's
yeah,
close. I would say Louisville's the south.
Okay. I've been to, I did one of those viral Twitter prompts about clicking off the number of states and you throw up the map of the place.
Yeah.
I've been to a lot of different states, but not
We gotta get you to Knoxville,
very few
man.
in the south. I've been to a bunch of. I've been to Wisconsin. I've been to Minnesota very briefly. I've been to
Minnesota.
Pennsylvania. I've been to Ohio, Pennsylvania. You can tick off all the states in New England. I've been to all of them. I've been to California. I've been to Wyoming and Utah and Nevada. I forget which one they prefer.
That's the one I don't know. I would be curious.
I've been to Texas.
There you go. Bobby Silverman.
A couple of different times I've been to Texas.
What can the good folks check out from you this week?
Did we pod last before the story I wrote came out, or no?
Well, I was gone
No.
last week. We potted 2 weeks ago. So did it come out?
I think I mentioned it then. It was.
How long has it been?
August 29th is when that story came out.
Oh, yeah. We potted 2 weeks ago.
Okay, well, read
Yes.
it. It's still a good story, but I did mention it. But go read it, and you can. It's the link. It's the pinned tweet on my page. So click that story. No.
If you see Bob on Twitter, it's always going viral. All of his stories are I'll look at it. It's 9,000 retweets, 17,000 likes.
No, they don't get that.
People wait. They have notifications on for the next Bob Daily Beast story to drop.
False. Nothing imminent.
Can we talk about the podcast thing, or is that off air?
No. Keep that out. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. But hey, enjoy the sports this week, everyone.
Enjoy the sports, man.
How are the Braves doing?
Okay.
These days?
Bob Silverman up there in New York City. For myself down here in Knoxville, Tennessee. That is all we've got. Andrew, missed you this week. We'll have him back next week.
Love you, buddy. We're keeping it a buck for you.
There you go. Talk to you later, Bob.